then you went to Irwin.
Test. All right, cool.
And then you went and did engineering straight. Did you just get hired?
No, so from there, are we already recording?
Yes.
Rocking and rolling. No, and then what's my wiggle room?
You have quite a bit of wiggle room, but
wiggle me.
You keep leaning back and then leaning forward, so I'm gonna have to take that.
I'm gonna take my shoes off.
Take them off.
So 2015 started. I did 1 year of valet with him, and then they laid off all the valet drivers because we were like in house, and then they were like, "All right, we're doing out of house." Because
they're doing that again. They're laying off all the valet drivers again and getting a new company. Shit. But anyways,
were they in house? Did they make it in house?
No,
they're just like
we were the last in house.
What do you mean?
So you then
after there, I was like, I didn't even have a car. I used to ride a motorcycle. So up until that point, like I guess it'd be 2016. I was always riding a motorcycle, and then I was like, all right, let me get a car and do this whole Lyft thing. Because that's like when Lyft and Uber was really taking off. 2016, 2017. Yeah. So I went and got a car, and then I did fucking...
One request. Can you go and check that camera behind the Mark IV? Make sure I'm in focus, or at least in frame.
Okay, so then you started doing Lyft and Uber.
Yeah, you good.
No, not that one. The one right below it. Yeah, that one.
Yeah, you're good too.
Okay, great.
Okay, so Lyft and Uber. You went and bought a car then because you had a motorcycle.
Yeah, so I bought a car, gave my bike to my mom because she also rides.
Okay.
My whole family rides, and my whole family's gotten in motorcycle accidents, which is crazy, including you. Including me. So, have you ever ridden before?
No.
No, I'm just kidding.
I wasn't in LA.
It's so fun. Yeah, LA, bro. Teaches you how to ride, but also scary.
Dude, these people going between the cars.
That was me, dude. I used to go like 130 down the road. Just cruising, dude. And then I got stories of like bike or like what was it called? Motorcycle cops.
Oh, okay.
Like pulling up next to me. Like two of them, like when they pull up next to you, bro, they're not scared of nothing, bro. Their fucking knees were touching my knees and shit, like doing like 90.
Wow.
Like one time when they pulled me over, like they come up on you, like fucking, I don't know, they like gravitate towards you. They're just like, and they like pull off the road, just like right in my face, like, oh God. Like, and they like pull me off the road together. I was like, oh my God.
What'd you do with my beer? Is that my beer?
That's not drinking.
That's not mine. I'm not drinking. That's yours.
Oh, I was drinking your beer, bro.
As long as...
Yeah. Oh, okay. It tastes the same. So then you do an Uber and Lyft.
So I do that shit
and then
until 2020, until the pandemic.
Okay.
So I did that all the way up until the pandemic. And then and it was kind of cool because during that whole time I was able to like, because when you're riding through Uber, all you are is just like in your thoughts. Yeah. So I was able to like totally begin the process of like developing my theory for my book. And then during COVID, I ended up writing the book. And that's like, I essentially just took a break. I took like a year and a half off. And then Luis, who we had both met and knew from 2015 when we worked there, because he was working there as a housekeeper. He came up to me, he was like, hey, we need an engineer. Because he had like went off and like he had become a trucker. And then he came back to Irwin after trucking, and he became an engineer there.
Wow.
And I think he back in as a housekeeper and then like got promoted to engineer. And then he was like, hey, we need an engineer. And I grew up around my dad, who was like always a maintenance guy and a plumber and an engineer. And so I was like, fuck it, why not? Let me just try it for fun. I'll do it for a year. So like I already knew some general stuff, but I'm like, no expert in anything. Just
Ken knows a lot of shit.
Ken's pretty knowledgeable.
I mean, it seems like it. I know he like welds and does all kinds of shit.
Right. When they're talking about screws and stuff, like, oh no, that's an 832. You need a 645. You gotta be able to go halfway in there. You're gonna put an anchor bolt, stir it clockwise, pour some soup in there.
What's up?
Welcome to the show, brother.
Thank you.
It's been a while since I've done the show. Last time I haven't released it yet, but I have a Christmas episode coming out, episode 20. It's sometime within the next 2 weeks with Grant, myself, and Neil. It was very unusual as I had a Christmas tree over here.
We were all naked.
That's
we were all on shrooms.
And then there was dancing. It was a lot. And we've been trying to set you up to be on the podcast in a while. I know you from passing.
I'm so happy you're here, dude. We never got a chance. Like we've always talked in little snippets here, but the fact that we're like all able to kick it. That's dope. I'm glad you came over, dude.
Good stuff.
So
bro.
I'm happy you come in, and I get a chance to actually interview somebody. I'm not interview, like kind of get to know somebody on the podcast, because we've talked in passing because we're always working and stuff. But it's awesome to get you in here, and you agreed to come in. We set it up last week, and they didn't work out, and now we are here. I'm glad you're here, and I hope you enjoy the show, brother.
Did you have to sign the contract?
Yeah, right. Non-disclosure contract.
I cut my finger, signed it in blood.
It's like, have you ever seen Eric Andre? Ever heard of it? No, Eric Andre. He's like, you've seen skit comedy though. Yeah. Like where like skit comedy gets all crazy. People are just like, lion jumps through here or some shit.
Right.
Oh God.
And so let's just start with like some easy questions. Let's just say, what's the meaning of life and what happens after death?
Those are easy. Softball questions.
Some softball questions. Come on. What do you think? Tell me the truth. We got all day.
That's me. Just jumps
like a round table to the meat of it.
What do you think?
I was gonna get to no small talk from Mario. Shit.
No, let's jump right in.
I don't know if I have a solid opinion of what the meaning of life is. I mean, I do believe, as humans, we need to feel like we have a purpose, and usually like giving or helping others, I feel like kind of gives us that purpose. Mm-hmm. As far as what happens after death, I don't know. I feel like we're all energy, and I feel like, Bruce Lipton talks about this like a TV set. So like you have a signal coming in, and that's your DNA. Mm. And then like if the TV breaks, the signal's still there. You go to Best Buy or wherever you go, you pick up a new TV, and if that you tune it to the certain signal, and you're back online.
Right. I love that. And I love his tea. Lipton tea. His iced tea. It's so good. It's so refreshing.
So good. He's
his words are refreshing. Yeah, his everything.
And I feel like that resonates with me. I feel like we're all energy, and it is like that. If your DNA is exactly, and you're cloned, or like you came up 100 years from now and everything in sync, or everything was synced together to line up with that DNA, then I feel like you would kind of be back online. It's like when you see somebody, if you've seen somebody die or you're right there, it's like you can tell when they're gone. It's like they're not there.
But Have you seen somebody go?
Yeah, my mom passed away a few years back, and then my grandfather when I was younger. And it's like you look at them, and it's like you see the body, but it's completely different. And I feel like, their energy or spirit or whatever you perceive it to be continues on. But their just physical body would be like a TV set or a car or just an avatar or whatever you want to call it. That's just embodying your spirit while you're here, giving you that experience. Totally. The human experience.
Right.
It's so succinct. I like that.
Yeah, that is good. That's real good. Did you grow up religious, or did you grow up?
I grew up Catholic.
Yeah, where are you from? What's your where are you born?
I was born in New York.
Okay.
Amityville.
Amityville.
Okay.
Was that I know that name for
it's a horror. There was like I guess a house was built over like a cemetery or something. So there was supposedly like a lot of spirits and a lot of things. I don't really know the whole story behind it. So it was like the Amityville horror. I think they made a movie about it as well.
Interesting.
My parents are from New York. We ended up moving to Vegas when I was just before I turned 3. So I pretty much grew up in Vegas. Moved to California, lived in Boston.
Vegas? Or like Las Vegas? Or like in Vegas?
Everybody kind of gets confused with Vegas. I mean, there's
that general area.
The general area. I mean, people say Vegas, but there's really just like a small part of Vegas. It's like where the strip is initially, where it starts is not technically, if you look on a map, technically Vegas. So then you got North Las Vegas and the Northwest. And I lived Northwest.
Right next to like Deja Vu?
No. I lived in Deja Vu.
I was there.
It was amazing.
I had a room in the back. Yeah.
How old were you when you moved out?
When I first moved out, I want to say I think I was around 20 or 21.
Oh, okay. So you lived most of your youth.
Yeah, I went to elementary school, junior high,
New York.
high school. No.
Oh.
New York, I left just before I was 3. We moved to Vegas, went out just before I was 3.
Oh, okay.
And then in Vegas, I did my elementary school, junior high, high school out there. I never went to college.
Did you like it out there, or?
Honestly, I didn't. I don't like. I mean, there are moments, and I think that's also the reason for the longest time why I never wanted to go back to Vegas. And everybody would be like, "Hey, what's it like going up in Vegas? What's it like growing up in Vegas?" And I'd be like, it's kind of like anywhere else, right? This and that. However, when I moved to Boston and lived there for 5 years, and then I'm like, no, this isn't like everything else. I mean, now it's kind of changed because you have,
in a good way or a bad way.
I think in a good way. There's a little more culture. There's a little more diversity in certain things. I think Californians bring a lot of that. It's kind of changed. When you go, and I can only speak from my experience. I'm sure everybody has a different experience.
Yeah.
When you go to Boston, it's more wholesome. Like there's more like families that have kind of been there for a long time, and like they all go to the sporting games and kind of like, and all that
tight knit community,
a little bit tight knit, and they don't grow up as fast. In Vegas, there's not a lot to do if you're not 21. So it would be like we'd meet up at like a Wendy's or something, and then we go drive to the top of the road in the middle of the dark and just drink and hang out, and then like fights or something would break out. It's like a very fast paced kind of, if you're not old, they don't really have a lot to do if you're not 21.
I'm from Arizona too. So it's like, and this is, I mean, we both grew up in the area where it's like, you didn't have cell phones. You didn't have like a TV always at your hands. Like you were riding bikes around and like,
Well, how old are you?
48.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
No way.
Yep.
I was guessing like 38.
I appreciate that.
That's good, bro.
Thanks, bro.
Good job.
Thanks, dog.
Keep up with the veganness.
Vegan diet.
The vegan diet. I talked about this with Brandon from engineering. That we're kind of like the last generation that actually had a childhood. Like we didn't have these instant, streaming movies and cell phones and internet as we have it now, where it's instant entertainment, instant gratification, instant like dopamine dumps. Back then you literally needed to sit in the car on a road trip just looking out the window, thinking about stuff, playing
now, road games or
they
whatever.
don't need to do that. They literally want my stepdaughter. Every time we get in the car,
is she a pad kid?
She has a tablet.
Oh no!
And she has, and whenever the tablet's out of battery, she wants the phone. Mario, where's my phone? 2 years old. Where's my phone? Yeah.
How do you guys deal with that? You guys give her like, all right,
we try
an
to
hour
do
of phone time or whatever.
We try to do it in the morning. No TV, no cell phone, no nothing until after 12. But she's just so addicted to it. It's just like, obviously it's not everything to her. Like, in the mornings, she's usually wants breakfast, pancakes, or yogurt or whatever, and then she's
at that age where she's 2.
She's 2. So like, she's like,
she doesn't understand all she knows all that. You can get her stuff. Yeah. And if she yells loud enough, it's going to come.
Get it. Yeah, she'll get it, and,
or she'll get the backhand.
But she's still like in the world of like instant entertainment, and she's going to grow up with it. And it's going to be incredibly difficult to keep her away from it and have her live a real childhood.
What is a real childhood?
In terms of my childhood, and the type of childhood I came from.
So what was your childhood like? You're from Arizona?
Yeah, I'm from Arizona.
Even more remote.
You born there?
No, I actually, I was born in Tucson, but then I moved to Mexico till I was like 4. And then we moved back and forth until I was 8 or 9. And then we stayed in the United States. But like, it's still that same kind of environment of like growing up without that you know, and it's more about building friendships, going outside and experiencing the world and seeing it for what it is rather than seeing it through a screen, you know? And I feel like we are like the last generation that could really say that, you know? And I don't know what that's going to cause to the new generation. And I don't think it's going to be that long because
I feel like it's all about the parents though. Like the parent, like
I don't even think the parents
they're not going to have a tablet in their hands. Yeah, you have all the control. They literally are not strong enough to stop you.
For example, it's like, okay, you can keep them away from the tablet, from the phone, from the TV until they go to school. And now all their friends have tablets, all their friends have TV, all their friends talk about these TV shows and all this stuff, and they can't relate because they're so isolated. So you're taking away something that everyone else is experiencing that you want them to experience. So you're taking away their identity.
But what if that's just a specific niche crowd, which is to say, like, if they're going to be like book readers, they're going to find book reader friends.
Yeah, but that's not everything. I like books, but I don't associate myself with just book readers.
Well, I'm saying, like,
you need
the people,
a
like
diversity of people in your life, not just that one niche that you're mentioning. But essentially what I'm saying is that even though the screens are dominating the new generations, I don't think that's going to last. I mean, it's going to go beyond that. You know, like this AI thing that's growing.
He loves ChatGPT. Every episode ends up going, let me tell you what I learned about ChatGPT.
So what's your meaning of life, ChatGPT?
I believe that we are just seeing how we're going to integrate with technology. But in reality, what I see, the meaning of life is what you make it. Like if whatever you want, if you want to believe in God, you can believe in God. If you want, there's all sorts of different flavors that you can live by and believe in. And I feel that you should do it however you please to do it. I just think that you should have a diversity of different flavors. I totally agree with your idea of like, you know, TV's.
Well, that's Bruce Lipton's. That's not mine.
Oh, is it? Yeah. Okay, I see. But
it makes sense to me, though.
No, it does. It does me too. I mean, one of our favorite movies that we always watched over and over again back when we used to live together was The Matrix.
Yeah,
we always watch The Matrix, and we always ponder on the ideology of, or the philosophy of, we're plugged into something that is, you know, reality, or it's, you know, consciousness, or it's, you know, the world we live in. And after this, we might go to another reality. We might just be turned off like the TV is when you unplug it, you know, who knows really. But a big part of, you know, life is treating others like you want to be treated, you know, live and let live, you know, that's my biggest philosophy. And in terms of what happens after life, I think it's whatever you want it to be, you know? And I think whatever belief you need to believe so you can treat people with respect, with dignity and empathy, do so, you know? It's just that a lot of it is derived from our environment, and it derived from our experiences. And a lot of people can't associate with that because they don't have that freedom of information, that freedom of open-mindedness, because so many people are indoctrinated in certain ideologies that it's not their fault, you know, like kind of like what you were suggesting. Take them away from the tablet, take them away from the TV. You should not take children from building their own identity. They should realize on their own that, you know, the TV is not good. You should talk to them as in, hey, don't eat too much sugar. Mm-hmm. Sure. Don't go up a ladder too high.
Right.
Certain things need to be
the hard part about all that, so there's got to be a balance, because going into what you were saying before, everything above and beyond how you grew up or your beliefs in that, it's really our perception.
right,
of what's going on, because two people can have the same exact life but perceive it completely different.
exactly.
Isn't that crazy?
You could twins or brothers or sisters or two people. I think I want to say Joe Dispenza talks about it. Like two people go to the same party. One has a great time. One has a bad time.
Yeah.
And so your memory or vision of that party's bad.
Yeah.
I love Joe Dispenza. He's
it's amazing. And I think the hard part and the balance is, and I don't have kids
that you know of.
That I know of. Therefore, I have none. It's like we're projecting our thoughts and beliefs. Like you're saying, oh, don't do this, don't do that, or teach them that, don't go and climb a ladder. It's like those are really our perception and beliefs. And I think going back to kind of what Grant was saying about the TV and the iPad, I think by having those things that are so overstimulating, it's hard for them to formulate their own identity. And now you're formulating it based on, I mean, even a lot of the developers of these things don't let their kids use them.
Right.
Because they know they're designed to keep you addicted and to sell stuff and convert your thoughts and opinions and control you to some degree or whatever you want to believe.
Yeah.
So when they're very young, there are a lot of people that believe not having that stuff helps you develop your imagination. And the imagination will help you create your own individualism and have your own thoughts and ideas. But if you're, it's almost like when you're having those things, or we're having like when I grew up, you remembered everybody's phone number. You just had to, or you didn't call them.
Yeah.
And so like we're losing parts of our memory and weakening certain things that you don't use. And I think that's what a lot of these things, calculators, all that other stuff, it's like they're good in certain ways because we get a lot more information. We can kind of, hear about what's going on in the world. And there's a lot of that stuff. But then a lot of other things that we were able to do before are getting limited. Right. And I believe like when you have all these shows and like your kids you want what they have and this and that, and that's kind of all propaganda trying to keep everybody to want and get everything. And I think that is taking them away from what is their purpose of being here. Because now you're in line and lining up with what everybody else does or what everybody else believes cool. And that much stimulation and that going on for a child where their prefrontal cortex isn't developed enough to reason and to decide, they're pretty much taking everything at face value. That's why you can believe in Santa Claus. You could tell them something, they'll just believe it. Right. It's like, they say they learn, they grow like sponges. And that's because they just absorb whatever you're feeding them.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
And that's either going to be you, it's going to be church, it's going to be the teacher, or TikTok, most of all TikTok, and these places that they're watching. So you get to the point where how do you even know what your identity is and what you want? Because you're so overstimulated and bombarded with all this other stuff. And especially at those ages, like I know when I was younger and I was awkward and like, there's probably times where you're like, there's a girl that likes you or you don't like them. And then they would say, oh, you must be gay. You don't like her. She's so hot.
That's huge though. Not everybody does that. Not everyone like takes that moment to like self-reflect and like process information.
Yeah.
A lot of people just, absorb and then, they don't ever take that time to like actually examine themselves.
Sometimes your environment doesn't give you the chance. Like you're so projected upon what you should believe and what you do that you don't have the chance to really reflect on those things. Because I didn't know what I believed in until I moved out. Until I went to college and it was all up to me. You know what I mean? I needed to know what I needed to do for me to succeed. And I couldn't have done that if I was still living at home, depending on my mom to tell me like, oh, 2 + 2 is 4. It was just so like everything was in line with like everybody else. Adults should know better. And then I found out that adults don't have all the answers. They don't know. They're navigating it just like I am. They're trying to find answers as best they can with the information and tools they got from their childhood. And they're projecting those into you. And another thing they project on you is their fears. And it's very common that other people tell you, you can't do that because I tried. It's like, you didn't try like I did, or you're not going to do it like I can. And you got to realize that upon yourself, because not a lot of people motivate you in life. Not a lot of people encourage you to do it your own way.
Well, misery loves company.
Right.
And if you succeed, it makes them feel worse about themselves. And I think the hard part is like anything that's worth anything in life takes struggle.
Oh, yeah.
Birth in life is struggle. It's like harsh. It hurts. It's, you want to get stronger arms. You got to work out. You want to get, a more evolved brain. You got to study. You got to read. You got to do these things. And I think we have this misconception, especially now. I mean, I feel like every generation gets a little bit weaker in this regard, is like, everybody's got to get a trophy, or you can't do this, or like you're saying, like not until you were out on your own and you didn't have your mom there, which is scary. Yeah. And it's hard and you have to go through it, but not until you go through that stuff do you really develop. Or like a martial artist, or any professional athlete, the work that goes into being the best, you can't just obtain that. And, there's stories of like Jordan, like he got cut from his high school basketball team, or certain. It was like, if he missed a shot, he would spend hours, taking that shot. Or Kobe Bryant saying, I would get up early, do a 2-hour practice, and then do the regular practice with everybody else later on. And so after 5 years, I've had 2 hours more practice. After 5 years, they can't catch up. So it's not necessarily, I mean, granted, I do believe, there is some talent there, but most of the time, the most talented people don't make it. It's the ones that work the hardest. It's the same thing they talk about with kids. It's like when they achieve something, a parent saying, oh, it's because you're so smart, this and that. Then when life gets hard, they think they're dumb. Instead of reaffirming they did well by the work they put in and the effort, and strengthening that thought into them, that like, hey, it's because I worked hard, I accomplished this, not because I'm special or not because I'm smart. So then when times do get tough, they have the mentality of, I just got to keep working at it. I got to keep working at it. And that's kind of like what you're saying too, that goes into what you're saying as far as like, maybe you weren't able to do it doesn't mean I can't do it. Right. And the fear that they bring upon you because, and, in a parent's defense, it's like, they don't want to see you hurt. They don't want to see you struggle. And the misconception of not wanting to see someone struggle is what actually is making you struggle. Yeah. And it's also keeping you from achieving and getting to where you want to go. Exactly. I kind of to the point you just made is hard work beats talent when talent refuses to work hard. Yeah. That's a great quote. It's a good quote. And another quote that you kind of alluded to was what was that one that's easy weak men make hard times make strong men make easy time make weak men. Yeah, it's like a cycle. It's cyclical. Yeah. And we're going through that weak men era. Yeah. Where like there needs to be hard times for strong men to rise. Well, and it's like, fractal patterns in life. Repeating patterns. It's like for anything to continue, whether it's the stock market, has to go down to go up, or there is no up. Exactly. You know what I mean? So like you're touching upon it. So after this week, it's going to become strong again. Right. And it's just going to cycle back. And then once it's strong again, they're going to make it easy for everybody. And it's just going to be weak. And it's this continually thing that's going to continue happening. And it's almost like, it almost has to go this far extreme and that far extreme to find that middle ground. But then once it's on that middle ground, it has to start going like this. Yeah. Otherwise, life is vibration, motion, and energy, and all that is movement. Emotions is energy and motion, and like chemicals in our brain are actually giving us signals, and all this chemistry and biology. It's like everything's energy. Light is energy, and energy is motion. So without motion, there is no life, and that's death.
Exactly. Exactly. No, yeah. It's and you kind of see that in the world as well. Like if you look at the last 20, 30 years, we didn't have any wars. We had a good time of peacetime around the world for the most part. And now all kinds of wars are happening. Because it's just a natural thing that humans go through. It seems like. Were you going to say something?
Yeah, I was going to say. I think there's two things. I think there was a lot of stuff going on that we just didn't know, but now that we have the internet and everything's being blasted, it's more of us. But I do agree with you. It's like it's the same thing when you're bored. If you're stranded around bored, you start tapping your finger. You start doing something. So like if there is peace, you're looking for some stimulation. And anybody that, the human nature is to conquer and grow. And it's like every person at some point, every nationality, every race, every whatever you want to call it, at some point was getting conquered by somebody.
Exactly. Yes.
I mean, do you think that's creative energy gone awry? Like, do you think
I could see that?
Have you ever heard of like people talk about like how if you don't like masturbate or don't ejaculate, like that energy turns into creativity? Like, I wonder if that's the same thing where it's like, we get bored and we want to create, but what's easier than creating? Destroying or fucking shit up, So it's like, is it the same thing, but kind of just seen in a different way?
I don't know. I feel like it would just be, it's just the way you're channeling it.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times to do something that you really want, it's easier to not. It's easier for me to sit down and just eat my feelings because I'm having a bad day than for me to like struggle and work on myself or whatever. And I think the same thing with the energy. It's like, if that energy isn't going anywhere, you have a choice of how you want to direct it. And you know what I mean? And maybe instead of working hard to, we're fighting for oil, we're fighting for this, instead of like working hard to figure out another way that we can, get cars moving or get energy or whatever. Oh, it's easier. Let's just dominate them and we'll just take it. Right. Because that stops us from having to put any thought in anything.
It's easier to take than grow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's easier to blow up a house than to build one.
Yeah.
Like it's instant. It's destruction and chaos. It's always instant and order and creativity and something that benefits others is very difficult because you're dealing with multiple people. That's why they always say that, when you're inventing stuff, think of others, try to provide a service, because usually that's where it's needed, right. Because you look at all the inventions, the phone could have just been some guys like, I just want to talk to my friend. What I mean? The internet, just wanted to send a message, send a picture of my friend.
Or information or something.
Yeah. But then that led to this booming industry, this booming new kind of like universe, parallel and intersecting with our universe. Even though we're seeing each other right now, it took us interacting with this to get us here. In
that same vein of thought, this is something that my mom always was like questioning. She's a doctor of clinical psychology, and we always like get into debates about this. Like, where do you think motivation comes from? Because that's kind of like in the same vein as far as, because you're either motivated to destroy or motivated to create. Like in general, though, where does motivation come from? I feel like that's something I've been trying to like find for myself, because I feel like it comes and it goes. And it doesn't seem, I don't know, is it just will? Is it just, but even, I guess it's the same thing as will, right? Like,
I guess your motivation comes, a lot of people say, how big is your why?
Ooh, okay.
Like you can't have motivation. The bigger your why is the bigger motivated you're going to be.
Right.
So like a mother that has a starving kid has a strong why.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like their why is like next level, and they're going to do all this stuff because they have that big a why. Like how desperate is that for you to get whatever it is you want? Is how much you're going to drive. I mean, you think of any animal, any species, they're backed in the corner when it's life and your subconscious has to kick in and instincts. It's like your why to survive is so much stronger that you're going to fight. And when you were talking about it, it got me thinking that like back to beliefs and our ideas of how certain things are supposed to be. And I feel like this is what makes the world. And sometimes I get in my head with this stuff is all the inventions you were saying. So if I said to you like, hey, you're lazy, or it's a lazy person, or you're lazy, it has a negative connotation about it, right? They're, you know, they don't have a thing. But everything that we find in life that's important to us was done by a lazy person. Mm-hmm. Running water, they probably didn't want to go out and pump the water. So they thought about how you can get water. Same with electricity. Same when you're talking about the internet. Right. It was a person that didn't want to have to get up and do something, or maybe not. Maybe get up isn't the right word for it. Or somebody just wanted it
with less energy.
Like instead of having to go visit you in Texas, I want to figure out a way I can contact you and not have to do that.
Right.
And I think the beauty in that is laziness can become a benefit because it actually helps a lot of people's lives become easier
with the right perspective.
With the right perspective.
Right. Interesting.
Yeah.
And then that goes back to the cycle, like you're saying, is it's this lazy to say and like a week and this and that. It's like now everybody texts, we can't even talk anymore.
Right. Right. Yeah. I mean, I think kind of going back to what you were saying about where motivation comes from, I think motivation is like a push, and your discipline is the ramp that kicks you off into a new dimension. You know,
where's the push coming from?
That push comes out of nowhere. It's so very random.
I mean, I like what you said with the why, because it kind of like makes
the why is good. The why is good. The why you can wake up every day with a good why, but the motivation to want to do something, it really falls on your schedule. It falls in this, like I have certain times where I'm motivated to do something. Like I get a spark of an idea of like something I want to research or something I want to find out, and I do it, and then it's gone. You know what I mean? Like, so motivation is very like here and there. That's it. But discipline, I feel discipline is more of like a consistent burn. You know what I mean? A motivation is like a raging fire, and then it burns out.
Well, you can even take that a step further, because the only reason it's burning out is because you've been gratified.
Right.
It's you've been
so you lost your why.
You lost your why.
You obtained the why.
It's or it's like you don't want to put any more effort into it.
Right.
It's like, okay, I got my fill. I'm good. I'm going to move on.
Yeah. And
but what continues that drive going?
It also depends on the subject, right? Because the subject could be like, hey, I wanted pizza, and you go and get pizza. Oh, or I want to build a podcast, and that podcast satisfies you right now. I'm satisfied. But once I release it, I want some more. You know, I want to make another podcast.
But here's the thing: how do you invigorate those peaks? Because just like a relationship, just like, because I was thinking about this, because I've come across several ideas in my life where, like, when I come to a really interesting or unique idea where I'm like, wow, this is profound, this is life changing, and it'll change my life for a little bit, where I'll be like, wow, I'll change my whole pattern, my way of thinking, my way of acting, and then I'll like kind of just become comfortable with that idea. In the same way you can like become comfortable with a relationship or comfortable with a job that like once really invigorated you, you know, like the first time you became a bartender, or the first time, you know, you started a podcast, you were like so excited. And then it's like, you kind of like plateau out, you know? So I'm like, how do you,
I think it goes up and then it evens out right there on top.
Right. But can you initiate new peaks? You know, like, can you like, I don't know, maybe it's just reinvesting your why, or like, be like, all right, my why is here, but even more so.
It's hard too, because it's like there's so many factors that go into it. If you're hungry and starving, or you're tired, or, you know, or there's other things that are more pertinent, and maybe because you have to end up doing those, that it takes you away from what that is you're doing. Mm-hmm. And I feel like that's what separates people that are great at something that people are not. They continue to find that drive to keep going. Mm-hmm. And it's like evolution, to keep evolving. Once you've changed and gotten to somewhere, then it's like, if you don't continue to change, you're going to peak out and plateau. Like you bring up bartending. Like I talk to the new bartenders, because they're like, oh, they're into these drinks and these craft cocktails. And it's like, you know, I did that years ago. Now I just want to I don't even feel good about bartending and giving somebody some poison and just mixing it up to make you like it. That it's like, you've already been there, done that. It's like, there's no point in it anymore.
It's lost its shimmer for you.
It's lost. And I think that's also how we evolve as people.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like when you start really, I know I can only speak for myself, but like, you know, COVID actually was a really good thing for me in a lot of ways. It's like, I didn't grow up reading a lot of books. My grammar's lacking. My English, I was never really like big in English. And, you know, it was like a way for me to start reading. I never really read. It was also a way for me to kind of rethink my life and think of these things. And I think that's what's kind of helped me grow internally. And in doing so, I realized how much more I need to. But the benefit of where I feel like I've been going is giving me the driving force to see where else can this go. But you have to be interested in it. Like you're interested in a podcast, you buy this stuff. Like how many people buy this stuff, they get everything ready and they don't execute.
Right.
Yeah. You know, I have like a lot of video equipment and stuff. I don't do anything with it.
Yeah.
Right.
You know what I mean? But you have a reason or more of a drive for that in yourself.
Right.
Who knows what the real answer is?
Right. Yeah. And then there's like the flip coin of that too, where like you can get obsessed over something and then it'll be really bad. You know what I mean? Like you can
bad or good. You know, it's the Michael Jordan one he was talking about earlier. It's like,
I mean,
you get
bad
obsessed
is
with it
in
and
like
become amazing.
What if you get obsessed with money and you want to step on every person so you can get what they have?
I don't think I think at that regard, and I don't think you're obsessed with money. I think you're obsessed with the power and what you perceive money to be. I don't know if anybody's really obsessed with money as it is of itself, unless you're some collector and it's some rare like dollar or something. Everybody, you know, the girls I can get the freedom it brings and this and that. And I think going back to what you guys were saying is anything that's everybody that we perceive has invented something great or that's great. They do get that obsession with it. Like you have to have an obsession to some degree, in my opinion, to catapult to wherever that you look at like Elon Musk or like, you know, Steve Jobs and like these people, you know, you got a guy like Wozniak that he has the talent to do it, but he has no drive. And then you have somebody like Steve Jobs that's obsessed with all this. And without him pushing him with that obsession, Apple doesn't really go anywhere.
Right.
Einstein or any of these like, you know, like we were talking about earlier before we started this podcast, how like a lot of people are talking about he would forget how to get home. And the basic stuff that most people do, whether it's common sense or, you know, all these things, they're so hyper focused on what they are, what doing and what they're into that they're, I don't know if the term weaker or it's just not as big a deal to them. So like that all kind of goes to the wayside. Like, you know,
everything's like sacrifices something else.
Yeah.
Right? Like everything is a give and take. So yeah, if you push on one thing, it's like you're going to give up time with something else, or you're going to give up energy towards something else. So that's the trick is, how far do you go in one direction and what are you willing to give up to get there? I feel like that could be like a great book title, like, you know, like Obsession or something like that. I'm sure there already is.
I think there is.
Yeah. Right. Like, yeah. What do you guys, is there anything that you guys particularly like? Obviously I know you're interested in podcasting, but I mean, obsession is like a whole nother thing. Is there anything that,
I mean, there's certain things that are toxic that you can get obsessed over.
I mean, like for you guys particularly, because in a way it's like
drugs.
But I don't know if drinking and drugs are an obsession more as like a numbing agent or a distraction from what you're going through in life. I don't know if I would say I mean, I could be wrong. I'm sure there are certain people but to say you're obsessed with drinking, I think you're obsessed with what it allows you to separate yourself from that you don't want to deal with.
Or let's just say human suffering.
Perfect.
Right? Like human suffering, like North Korea, Vladimir Putin, anybody that has an incredible array of power that can needlessly put out human suffering and gets a kick off of it. That is dangerous, you know? And that's what morals, that's what ethics, that's where all those type of words come into play. And that's where you influential people come into play and be like, hey, Martin Luther King made a huge difference because he had those in hand. He worked with those tools, and that's what he became such a big influential person, But do we practice those all the time? Do we do those things all the time? No, because we plateau at some point, right?
But I want to know what you guys are obsessed about.
Well, I don't.
If there's anything that's like a kernel of like, ooh, I could see myself being like, because in a way that's like identifying what your passion is or like what you're working towards in life. Like, I feel like I lost my passion a little bit, but I think it was and still is my book and like sharing those ideas
around so many times all through your life.
Oh yeah,
like you are.
But I always cycle back to certain things. So I think maybe that's it. Maybe it's the thing you always come back to. Like I think we all have things we cycle back to, like family,
and I think it's just your character
instrument.
I don't think it's you particularly choosing to do those things. I think it's just you. You have that type of character that you are just a bouncy guy. You bounce around different ideas, different modes of being. And
I think that's the best way to learn about yourself too.
I don't operate that way.
How do you grow if you're not getting outside of your comfort zone?
But then again, the only reason I'm not like that is because I see it in you. So
you're like, nah,
I'm not going to
you get your fill from watching him.
Yeah, I'm like, he's like
he'll report back to me.
Well, here's an interesting thought that I think it's like whether you believe in God or whatever, like everything in this world is there for a reason. Like the bees pollinate, we breathe out carbon, the plants take that, give us oxygen. The mushrooms, they say you can put mushrooms on an oil spill and they're designed to take death and fertilize it so new life can grow. Like I think we get so caught up with our brains and identifying with this that it's like we all, I believe, have a purpose in life. And
like a predetermined purpose?
Yeah, like I feel like, and I don't know if it can evolve.
He loves that. He loves determinism. I'm like on the spectrum of free will, and he's on the spectrum of determinism.
Well, it's like you can't have one thing without the other, and it's back to what you're, and a little bit on the whole power. There's this book I was reading called Power versus Force, and power is like gravity. It just is. And anything in the universe that you force has a counterforce. So like anything that's good, or like Martin Luther King or Gandhi or these people, they're coming from a place of power. They're not fearful. They're not trying to force their will on you. And because they're so open and so good that we gravitate toward it, that it ends up conquering. And then you have like your people like Hitler or these other people. Like it's the same thing.
One's like intrinsic. One's just natural in nature. And the other one's like,
it just,
but then there lies the question is, if everything is natural, then isn't force also natural?
You have to have a force to some degree. But I feel like that if you think about most people that achieve what they want, they almost come to a breaking point, it seems like, to where they're ready to give up and they just let go. And then it happens. Like you force. You don't get it. And then it's like when you just like allow, and all that work is already there, then it gets attracted. Like if I'm forcing something, then the universe is forcing back. Think about people that you might find somebody that's really needy to a certain thing that needs the most. You're more likely to help somebody that doesn't ask for it or seem desperate, even though that desperate person might need it more because of the force that they're so desperate with.
Interesting.
I find that, if somebody was like, I need help. And they're like, they really need it. Your first instinct is like, whoa.
Right.
You know what I mean? Cause all that's coming at you.
Right.
But then that we're most likely to help the person that doesn't ask, but they need help, but they're not going to ask you for it. And I'm going to help you because you didn't ask for it.
That's interesting. Yeah. That's almost like when you say that, I think of, because in my mind, like there's two main principles of the way in which movement occurs, which one is space and the other is substance. So substance is that force. It's the pressure. Whereas like space is, if there's space, something's going to fill it. So it's like if you sit back and you give something space, like it's gonna come fill.
It's like the vacuum.
Yeah, exactly. It's a vacuum, so it's gonna come fill you. Whereas like if you're trying to force, if you're trying to push, you might get there, but it's harder than just creating space. I don't know.
I mean, there's definitely a system going on. I mean, the whole reason why we came to existence, it's an odd but a miraculous and beautiful thing that happens. I mean, like forest fires are a natural thing.
Yeah.
You know, and we oftentimes extinguish forest fires, but the forest fires are supposed to be there. There are certain trees, seeds don't blossom, don't come out unless there's a high level of heat. I forget which tree that is. It's a common tree. And it goes to show that the soil needs high levels of heat certain times of the year or certain times over centuries. And
things need death.
Yeah, there is a level of transition. And sometimes we don't allow that thing because we don't want that pain. We don't want that feeling, you know? And as humans, we are very resistant to that. I mean, getting out of our comfort zone is a common thing. You know what I mean? How often do we really push ourselves out of the comfort zone? Not that often. We don't always speak out. I mean, it's a crowd mentality sort of thing, you know, and it's hard to build a good a skill to get out of that. And oftentimes you don't even prepare for it. It kind of just throws you into the game, you know? And then you see yourself like, oh, shoot, I am speaking in front of everybody right now. And I'm speaking my opinion. And I think this is the best idea we should do, you know, because everybody else threw out their ideas and they were terrible. And I think I have the best idea, you know? And oftentimes it will surprise you. And sometimes it doesn't work. And that's what keeps you from trying to share your opinion, share your thoughts. Kind of like the other day when it was super windy at the rooftop, right? I went up there and I was like, dude, it's fucking windy up here. Should we even be open? You know, and it was like, ooh, you guys are all like, what'd you say,
Well,
Mark?
we had been saying that and they weren't going to do anything. So it was like, you know, we have to make boom, done.
Yeah.
Right? You got influence.
Here's a question going back to the forest fires. Sometimes, do you think we're extinguishing them because man created that fire and it wasn't natural? And do you think it would be, we need forest fires, but it should be a natural occurrence? And then the next thing was, how do you know that person starting the fire wasn't what was meant to happen?
What's not natural? That's the thing where I get like, it's like I feel like everything is natural. There's like natural means nature. So am I not a part of nature? There's nothing. Wars, everything, anything that could happen. Like there's wasps that will like land on ants and impregnate their babies into their backs, and then they explode out of the ants, and like then they'll go and fuck up other ants. Like that's crazy. Like the stuff that animals already do to each other. I don't know. I just feel like. I think we're like looking at too microscopic a view. Like if you back out and we're like watch the earth evolve over, 10,000 years, you'd be like, oh, okay, yeah, this is all
we're
natural.
definitely having an impact on the planet.
Oh yeah, like, but is it not natural?
There is a unnatural part of it. I think there is a definitely like you ever seen that show called Life After People, I think it was.
I think so, yeah. And they show like 10 days after people. And it's like the foliage takes over the city.
It was like COVID, all the stuff that animals that were coming out, all this different stuff.
That? Yeah, right? That's true.
Yeah, so like you see the rejuvenation of the earth without us. So there's like a definitely influence we
overconsume.
Yeah, there's definitely like
we take more than we need.
Definitely.
And that's I think where what in my opinion makes it unnatural. It's like we don't need to eat as much as we do. No. We don't need to take as much as we do.
Yeah.
You know, like in nature, the wolf feeding its babies is only going to kill as much rabbits or whatever it needs to fill, and then it stops.
Right.
You know, because it can't store it and it can't do it. It's like most animals take what they need and they trust that it's going to be there. They don't even have the thought or the perception that it might go without it. Whereas humans, we fear everything. So we become horrors. Look at COVID with toilet paper. Like how many people are buying toilet paper, didn't even need it. All of a sudden, who thought toilet paper was going to be the most valuable thing on the planet?
Right.
And I think but then it could be your point. Maybe that is natural. Maybe that's nature. Like, hey, this is what they do.
I mean, we can't turn the clock around. Like we can't extract ourselves from the earth anymore.
Doesn't Joe Rogan say like we're here to eat the peach kind of thing? Like the earth is a peach, like in a way it's like we look at it as though, the earth is going to be fine. Like
once we're gone, Mother Nature comes back.
Yeah.
It'll kill us off and be done with it.
Was it Neil deGrasse Tyson said something cool, which I thought was amazing. He's like, if you took the earth and you pulled it down to the size of an 8 ball, like a billiard ball, he's like, if you were to rub your hand across the earth, if it was the same size as an 8 ball, it would be smoother than any billiard ball you'd ever feel. He's like, even the Everest, or any mountain, any range, like, from like the Marianas Trench to the Everest, he's like, it would still feel like the smoothest ball you've ever felt. I'm like, that blows my mind. That just goes to show you, like, for all the stuff that we're doing and we're harming Earth, it's like Earth has been here for millions, if not billions of years. And it's just going to keep cycling. And also, like, some other quote where someone was saying that like 97% or close to like 90% of all animals that have existed are already extinct. So like, the earth is continually cycling and trying new stuff.
Well, we can only perceive so much. Same with a microscope, or like there's atoms moving on this table, but it's solid to us. There's levels that we can't get past. We can't see certain things without something helping us. You can only feel a certain amount of smoothness.
Right.
So, and then back to the whole chaos and this and that, it's like, you come out of Penn Station in New York, like to us, it's chaotic, but to a bird flying up, it just looks like an ant trail. Like we look at ants just kind of walking.
Right. Might look peaceful to them.
Yeah. And there's an order to it, or you're flying in an airplane. It looks chaotic with cars. Eventually they kind of disappear, and there's all these patterns of the states, and you start going a little higher and you don't even notice the cars and the people. And it's like, everything looks kind of perfect.
Right. So cool. It really comes down to perception, and that perception can be like what you said. It needs to take an instrument to show us what's really happening, and oftentimes we react to what we're seeing rather than seeing the full picture. And sometimes we can never see the full picture. The full picture is so mind blowing. Our minds can't even imagine it. I mean, just the word infinity.
Well, even on a small level, they say what the reticular activating system in the brain is what you focus on. Like you get the car, you never seen it before. All of a sudden it's everywhere. It's always been there. Or you're into, podcasting stuff. All of a sudden you notice these microphone deals, or you notice this lights, or how the lights bouncing and this and that. It's like, it's not like it's never been there. We can only focus on so much.
Yeah.
And because of that, it's hard. How could you focus on infinity? How could you even think about that?
Yeah.
I can't even see what's going on in the building or the rooms, apartments next door, or what's going on there. Right. I can't fathom that.
No, there's so many things happening all at once that just the fact that we came up with the word infinity is just, that's crazy, dude. Like, and then God did all that, and he's worried.
And then God,
and he's worried about what we say about him and all these other things about biblical things.
Are you religious now, Mario?
I believe that there is some divine force out there that's giving us the world we see. But is it the biblical version? Maybe. Just like there's any other one, All
right.
I don't want to take any of that away from anyone. My girlfriend's really religious.
Is she really? What is she?
Christian.
She's Christian? Okay. And so you guys are going to have to agree on
stuff. And we're about to have a kid, and she's trying to get me to be more part of it. And I am trying. I am really really trying.
Like what? What does that mean?
Like
going to church?
I can't.
Well, I
Get it.
somebody told me the same thing because for me,
Are you religious?
yeah, I'm religious, and I started
Like following a specific?
like I would I'm Christian, and I feel like it's almost been. It's weird how life brings stuff into your life. Like it's almost like a new venture for me. Like I would say I'm kind of, I mean, I grew up Catholic, but I didn't really think about it. And I thought about life and this and that. And somebody brought it to me this way. It's like, you can't, because when you use the word trying, it's a mental thing. It's more of like, so, when we're born, we have neurological pathways in our heart. Our heart's the brain operating before the brain's developed when you're a fetus. And the stomach has neurological pathways because the stuff goes there and develops.
Okay.
So I'm so much in my head is what makes it hard for me. And people that I speak to that have had these experiences where it's like, I know it, not from a mental thing. It's been like a visceral thing. And I was talking to a friend of mine that's really Christian, and she was saying that's why you're struggling. You're so mental and you're so thinking so much because you're reading and you're doing this stuff that you need to see this answer. But because of that, I'm forcing it instead of allowing it. And that's where they talk about like, ask and you shall receive. It's like, instead of asking for something and not having an attachment to it, and then boom, it hits you. I don't know what's his Patrick Bett. I don't know if you know him.
No.
He was talking about it one day, and he this whole thing, and I forget his story, but it was something like this. He was like, God, I'm struggling to believe you. If you're really there, he says something about, tell me something about my mom, or I need to know, like,
give me a sign.
Give me a sign. I need it. And he was like, I'm really struggling. I'm really tired. And he's like, I'd have to pull up the thing, but it's something like he hadn't talked to his mom in years. And she called on the phone and she's like, Patrick, are you okay? I feel like something's wrong with you.
Whoa.
And he was like, now I could have took that as just a coincidence, but he was like, I chose not to. He's like, because for him, it was such an emotional, I mean, he didn't go into this detail, but it sounded like it was, this is what I'm asking for. And this happens. Like, and I haven't been talking to her. And then above and beyond that, she's asking, hey, are you okay? Because he was having a real hard time in life. And he's like, God, I need you. I need a sign. I need something, whatever. And his mom calls at that moment. And I feel like the hard part is it's like, man gets caught up into this whole thing. And it's like, maybe it's not like whatever we read or whatever we do, we perceive it a certain way. So, same thing with Jesus. They have this image of what we have to see it. We don't know if he looked anything like the image they created.
Right.
However, it's like the stuff that's in the Bible and all for how long it's been around and all these different things. And it kind of talks to all this science and all this stuff we're talking about.
Right.
And like Ed Milet, like some of these guys, he's talking about how like he believes in spirituality. He's a Christian. He believes in science.
Right.
And he's like, if anything, all this magnifies my faith because of how he's looking at everything. And I think we get hung up on the name of it or the title. And right away, it's like, you have the Bible thumpers and the people that do this, or you'll see them like, they're not living a holy life and you're telling me what to do. And it's like, I'm not going to believe you. And you, it's almost like you go to the doctor's office, they're telling you you're not healthy.
Smoking a cigarette.
They're smoking a cigarette and their blood pressure's up. It doesn't mean what they're telling you is wrong. But because we're looking at it as like, how are you going to tell me anything? I'm not going to listen to you. Or if I'm going to go get a personal trainer, you better be fit. But it doesn't mean the fat guy that doesn't work out or the fat girl that doesn't work out
still
isn't a genius and knows how to do it.
Right. That's interesting.
And, so I believe that everything happens for a reason. And in the last 2 years, I can't tell you how much like Christian stuff has been just coming into my world that for me, it's like, it's too coincidental for me just to blow it over. Now, I don't know where that leads or the dimension or the feeling of it.
Right.
However, like a lot of people I talk to, like Rachel at work, that used to work with us, a real Christian, and she goes to prison all the time, and she'll say she deals with these inmates and stuff. And
is she still there?
She's still there. Yeah, because she quit. She quit. She's at prison though. She's at prison. Yeah. But to her, she's like, I can see like the demon in them, kind of not like a demon like you would see in a horror movie, but like the energy of a demon. And
that's interesting.
She's like super Christian and like, but she's very open-minded. And so I think a lot of us, we come in interactions with certain people that are a certain way, and it's got to be this way, it's got to be that way, that it turns us away from it.
Interesting.
And I think it has to be an experience. And most people that actually come to God, when do they come to God? When there's nothing else and they're broken down to a point where you're not comfortable. There's nowhere else you can turn. You have no health. You're in a prison camp about to die and just hanging on for your life. And then somehow you get the will, or you hear something, or you just know. And I feel like I know. So the more I try not to do it, the more I end up doing it. Is I'm trying just to be open and allow it to happen.
That's cool. I like how you talked about the difference between like the mind and your heart, though, because I feel like in a way that's a perfect way to describe how to find truth, which is to say, like, I think there are people like, maybe the Bible thumpers or whatever that are a little bit too on the analytical. Like they're so following the letter of the law in the same way that like in the Bible, Jesus, I don't know if he like was helping people on Passover or something like that. He was like essentially doing something that was against the law.
Feed them. You're not supposed to eat. And so you're supposed to fast, and he allowed them to eat.
And he was like, help somebody up or something like that.
Yeah, and you're not supposed to.
Yeah, he's like doing things and he's like, this is the law of my heart kind of thing. It's like, so I think that was where some Christians go awry, is they are not following their heart and not listening to like, the heart of the law or the heart of God or the heart of Christianity. They're more listening to the letter of the law. So I think there's this balance that has to be found, because that's where I kind of deviated from Christianity, because I was raised strictly religious. And for me, because I'm similar to you and I'm super analytical and I want to like know all the little bits of information about whatever I'm learning, like why is this what it is? Why is it working the way it is? So it's like, I ended up seeing all these incongruities. Incongruities, or just like, oddities within the, Christian religion in general, where I was like, this just doesn't seem to match up the way that I thought it would or that I expected it would. So I just kept searching, but eventually for my own personal journey, there was a conflation of, mental and heart. And then once I reached that point, I ended up going back to Christianity or not Christianity, but going back to like specifically like Christian doctrines and other doctrines. And you see the through line between it all. And you're like, okay, I totally get it now. Like I see from this different perspective, and in a way you see where, people are, like you see where people can grow in, and you see people where they're like succeeding.
Extremists and not extremists. It's like if you were to meet an alien and you're like, oh, if I've just met you, I would say, oh, you're Mario, right? Or you'd say, I'm Adam, right? And then how would you point to yourself? Say, oh, if I say, now you introduce yourself to me, oh, you're Adam, I am, like, let's say I'm an alien. How would you do it?
Introduce you to someone else?
No, you to like meet yourself to me.
It's like,
so Mario Padenas.
Yes. Okay. So look where your hands go.
Right.
To your heart.
Right.
Not like to your brain.
Right. Yeah.
So it's like, this is the soul. And there's an old thing to say. There was another thing that was said was like, if you're so hung up on the Bible, how can you have faith? Faith is a faith. Right. It's like you can't have faith if you're hanging on to the, like you're saying, the letter of the Bible. And I think that's where the hard to swallow for a lot of people is, because just because a lot of people are Christian doesn't mean they have a lot of faith. Like you might know the Bible in and out, and you can another person told me the same thing. Like a person she was dating was like, knew the Bible in and out, word for word, can read scripture, can recite it.
Yeah.
But they were so mental about it that they never really received Christ or the actual thing of it. Like you're seeing this through line, like the connection of everything.
Right.
And we get so hung up on this idea of what has been presented on us. And I think that's where it's very hard to kind of like,
I think it's symbolic. I think that's people get hung up on the symbols. Because if you think about it, every word is a symbol, but also everything is a symbol. So it's like all symbols are pointing to the same thing, which is God or whatever you want to call it. It's source, it's being, it's, intrinsic nature or whatever. But yet, we get hung up on the symbols of reality. I think one of the biggest things, like, and I don't know how you feel, because I'm curious, because you're probably more, I don't know if aligned is the right word, but it seems like you might know more, because I've been out of the Christian, arena for a while.
I don't know a lot at all. Like, I'm like getting into it.
Have you ever heard of like that old story where I think it was Moses like went up to Mount Sinai and he like got the 10 Commandments and he came down and they were like making a golden calf? Like, have you ever heard that story?
Vaguely.
Yeah, the bull.
Yeah, and then Moses was like, I was gone for like a day or like 2 days. Who knows how long he was gone? I think he was gone for like 3 days. He was like, I was gone for 3 days, and you guys lost your faith in God already, and you needed a physical thing to worship. Yeah. And it's like, I feel like in a way, and this is probably like harsh criticism for a majority of Christians, which is I feel like people have made Jesus specifically an idol, which is that I think Jesus represents an individual who is God, but also is connected with God, which is to say that most people don't even look to the Father or the source anymore. They just look at Jesus.
Well,
they're missing, like they're stopping short of what they what they really could connect with and what they really should focus on, which is the source, which is God, rather than looking at the symbol or the representation of God.
I think I agree with that, because even Jesus, like people are like, oh, well, they pray to Jesus, but even Jesus prayed to the Father.
Right. So it's like, I totally agree, in the same way that I think we all could reach that level of connection where we essentially become God. We become so unified with that signal or the spiritual energy that is source, that there is no differentiation between you and source or you and God, except for the symbolic physical form.
Well, it's like the DNA in you of your parents. It's like you're going to be part of your parents. You can tell it by DNA. They're going to be in you. And I think, and this is just where I'm at in my journey, and whether it changes tomorrow or not, we'll see. But I believe we're trying to look at it from a human perspective. God's not human.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Jesus came down to show us the highest form of the human being, or the closest that you can be to God in a human form.
Right.
And I think, for me anyways, it's not idolizing Jesus other than appreciating the sacrifice that he made for us. Like the pain he went through and the trial. I started watching that show, The Chosen, which I think is really good. And what I like about that show a lot is, and I don't know how accurate it is. I mean, it seems pretty accurate to the Bible, but I don't know the Bible that well. So
is it on Netflix or what is it?
It's on Amazon.
Amazon. Okay.
I
haven't seen it.
They make him like a human, where he has fun with people. He's more like a regular guy. And I feel like that's how Jesus was. But when you're idolizing somebody, you're putting on a pedestal, no different than we do with our parents.
Sure.
And then as you get older and you see their flaws and you see these things, and then our life goes like upside down, because it's like, oh, they're not this perfect person. They've just been hiding everything from us.
Right.
I think it's easy for us as humans to idolize something,
right,
instead of like you're saying, is like really connect and really understand the meaning and why this is happening.
Right. Yeah, I think in a simplistic way of like doing it is like he's supposed to be a conduit. It's like you touch a conduit and it gets you to the source. It gets you to the power. But you don't worship or think that the power is coming from the conduit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like a piece of metal or something that has electricity that's connected to a source. It's like you touch that. Yeah, you touch in power, and that thing is the power. It is the, it's facilitating all that energy, but it's also not where that energy, stems from. But you could look at it as though they're one and the same, I guess, in a way.
Well, it's like you wouldn't be able to connect with God on a certain level without someone in human form to help you. Like you can't hear.
Do you think you need help though? Or do you think you can have that same type of connection?
I think we do, because I think we're so flawed. I think, humans, like you're saying, we bomb stuff. We do this, like left to our own devices.
I think you were leading to it with the DNA thing. Do you think that Jesus specifically had like a specific type of DNA that was different from ours?
I saw something and I wish I could find it. There were something about the numbers in the DNA represent some coding to like God. And it's like, it was saying how there's some way they connected it biblically or something to where it's almost showing that God's in all of us and we are all God. I mean, that's back to the whole planet thing. Like everything's connected.
Yeah.
Right. If I was a dog, I'm not going to understand unless I'm another dog.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like I can't hear the high pitched whistle like the dog can.
Right.
So I can't experience that. I can just see the dog responding to it, but I'll never understand that. Right. So in order for me to understand that, somehow I'd have to get the same wiring in my head like a dog does. And I feel like that's what God was trying to do, is you guys are so lost and you're left to your own devices that I'm going to bring down my son to help kind of you to understand and bring it together. Or he could just wipe us out if he wanted.
Yeah. I mean, back to the Joe Dispenza thing, is that something we can change then? Because obviously he, talks about what you wire or what you fire together, wires together. And, he always is an advocate for like rewiring your brain. So it's like, is that something, can we rewire our brain, or can we, isn't there a study too where people have like been able to unfold their DNA?
Oh yeah. You can
like refold it?
He talks about it. They had some meditators, right? And they had DNA, and they had somebody they had a group focus on unwinding the DNA. Nothing happened. And then they had a group focus on it emotionally, like it already had happened, and nothing happened. But when they connected the two, the emotion with the vision of it unwinding, 25% of the DNA unwound. So it was a combination, and that goes back to the connection of the heart and the mind, because the feeling comes from your heart and your stomach and that visceralness, whereas the other stuff comes from the mind, but not until you connect it does it happen. And then that even leads to the point where you're saying, we know we can rewire our brains. It's almost like a pathway that you're hiking. The pathway is always going to be there. We're always going to fall back to our old ways. Like the path never completely disappears. It just kind of weakens and grass or bushes grow over it. And then this path develops here. Doesn't mean that's gone away. Just the less time we respond or go down that path, the weaker it gets, the less you see it.
Right.
And everybody talks about these neurological pathways. But if we know we have neurological pathways in our brain, and we know we have them in our heart, and we know we have them in our gut, how do you rewire the ones in your gut and your heart? I mean, we're just scratching the surface on rewiring the brain. And I feel like as we're talking, I'm thinking, I feel like that's where all that is, where it's really going to start connecting. When we can figure out how to rewire our feelings and emotions and rewire internally, I think that's when a lot of this stuff will start making more sense. And then we become, like you're saying, closer to a godlike form or connected to God, because all of us is connecting rather than just this.
Right.
Or just this. And I think that's the difference. Like most women, they're very emotional.
That's sexist.
No, I mean, it's a strength because they come from, I feel like the heart's more powerful than the brain, but because we're physically stronger as men.
Also sexist.
Whatever you want to call it. That's why you put in pro boxer woman. Yeah, they're getting dominated. It's just a fact. But women can give birth. They can handle more pain than we can. You know what I mean? I feel like the goodness of life, strength, back to this, like you figure like Gandhi or Martin Luther King, that, Mother Teresa, like that's power. The brain is force. And I feel like power trumps force all the time. Like the strongest man in the world becomes a puppy dog and needs that motherly love at some point in their life.
Yeah. Sure.
I think society and the way we view it, we see it as a sign of weakness because we're looking at it from the wrong point of view as like a strength or force, when I feel like that's why I believe women are more connected. And it's even scientifically proven that women are connected to their kids. Like your mom will be like, something's not right with you. Like they feel that it's like you're connected. Like you're a telephone or like, cell tower or something. You're always connected. And that's a very powerful thing.
Yeah.
It's not a forceful thing. They're just so open and feel it emotionally that it's very, very powerful. And I feel like that's why women can connect with a lot of this stuff. And it's very hard for us to, because our brains have developed so much over the years. And they talk about like Neanderthal man, like when we were living more instinctually, which I feel like most women do, they haven't lost it as much as men. We were more connected to the universe, or like the movie Avatar, or like the species as a whole. And I feel like that's when we were more connected. And however, I feel like it's like a balance of both of them. And I feel like I'm only going to speak for me because I'm so back to the point of cerebral in my head that it is kind of a weakness, because it's very hard. I'm trying to develop this so much that this part of me is weakening.
Interesting.
In some weird way. And then I think when I start working on this, a lot of the stuff, back to the point of the drive of what you want, you start realizing it doesn't matter. Like, so you start losing that drive. But depending on how you were brought up, it's like you believe you need to have that drive. At the end of the day, whether you're rich, successful, whatever, we're all going to be bones in a grave. And then our spirit's going to go wherever. Well, we get hung up on, I need to do this. I got to do that. I need to drive to do this. I need to be obsessed about that to have greatness. What does it really matter in the scheme of things?
Yeah. Where do you feel like you're at with your desire, in the sense of like, I feel like there's almost like two camps of like, you either want to live a lifestyle because and this is for both of you guys, because I'm curious, like what, like you either live a lifestyle of, all right, I want to do something because I want to see particular results, like you're result oriented, essentially it's like looking at the effects, and you want to feel a certain way. So like you kind of like live a lifestyle, you're seeking, this information, or you're seeking this, religion or a particular family or whatever, because you want to see a certain, type of result in your life. Or you're almost like seeking out a position. So like one is like a process, and the other is like,
where do you fit in?
A thing itself, which is to say like, so like one might be specifically what I'm asking for you, might be on your journey of like Christianity. Do you feel like you want to like, are you seeking a lifestyle of Christianity because of what that lifestyle could bring you? Or do you feel like you're seeking a particular end goal or particular like result in itself or position, if that makes sense? Like,
I know what you're saying.
I want to know this, or I want to be this person. It's
more the second one. Like I'm not really like going to Christianity because I feel like this is what this is going to bring me. I think it's maybe like a combination of both. I feel like going on this journey is where it's going to make me feel like my purpose, or where my position in this world or whatever is.
Right.
It's going that, not necessarily like what can Christianity bring me, because I think that goes back to the Bible and like, people relying on the Bible more so of like, why am I here? What is my purpose? And like biblically, a lot of people say you pray and you ask, like, how can I serve you? And everything that has a role. And we look back to the whole point, like lazy or whatever else. When we look at serving something, we look at it from an inferior position. Like if you're serving me, or you're my server, or you're my servant, when really you're serving a role that you were put here. That it's not whether one's above or not. You know what I mean? Your mother feeding you when you're a child she's being your servant, but that doesn't put her in an inferiority position.
Right.
And I think a lot of times when people are like, how can I be of service? That's back to the power and force. It's like, that's opening up and your role in whatever it is. Like, I'm willing to do whatever it is you want me to do and why I'm here. It actually, I feel like, is more of a strength, a power, a power play, so to speak. And, that's kind of where I'm at. Like, what is my role? Why am I here? Give me some sign. The hard part is I keep using my head to look for it. For me.
Yeah.
Right. And I feel like that's how we're geared. I think that's the tool we've always used, and it's worked for us in the past. Why wouldn't it work this time? Right.
Using your head.
And it's kind of like what you were saying earlier. Sometimes you just need to let go. You need to let go and let it guide you wherever it is that it's supposed to lead you to. And sometimes when you get lost, it's when you find yourself. Because I feel like, coming to LA, I didn't have a plan. I didn't know I was going to be a movie director. I didn't know what I was going to. I knew that if I stayed in Arizona, I wouldn't do anything. I knew that the possibilities were higher, or just the mere experience would be higher just to move out here. Is it going to be harder? Yes. Is it going to be more expensive? Yes. Is the odds are all against me? Yes. But should I still do it? I have a feeling that I need to do this.
In a way, like, purpose is in the unknown. Like, you knew that there was purpose, in the unknown out there.
You're
there's less purpose in Arizona where you already knew.
Yeah, your parameters.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I feel like a lot of what we derive in meaning and purpose is oftentimes on what we do. And oftentimes we can't get out of what we do because, the world is designed by, if you don't have any experience, we're not going to hire you, So sometimes you got to think outside the box and say, I've never done this, but I'm going to do it anyways. I've never done a podcast, but I'm going to do it anyways.
This is my first podcast ever being on.
There you go. And you're doing great. You're doing great. And I love it. And thank you for being on. But stepping into that unknown sometimes leads you to things you never thought you would do, and sometimes you got to face your fears directly and see them for what they are, rather than thinking that these are like from your childhood or your trauma, or labeling them and put them in these neat boxes on who you identify as. Like Noah Yuval Harari, this guy, the book, I have him. He's really influential. He's one of my biggest authors that I listen to him all the time. He talks about stories is what makes our reality. Everybody has a story, and it doesn't matter if it's true and it's factual and it can be backed up by evidence. The story and the impact it does to you is much more influential than any other factual evidence you can ever derive from. And if you tell a good story, it will influence you for life. And oftentimes how we derive our identity is by the stories we tell ourselves. The story of, we came from Vegas, we came from Arizona, we did this, we went there, we are what we are now. And those things influence towards our reality. But you can change the story at any point.
Right.
You can literally wake up one day and tell yourself, I'm a millionaire, or tell yourself, I'm going to change someone's life today.
Yeah.
You can make that decision, and there is no one telling you you shouldn't. In fact, like, if you look at all the fears you ever known you had, everything you ever feared have been self-inflicted. Nobody's ever told you couldn't do something until you told yourself you couldn't do it.
Or you believed it.
And you believed it. Like, there's a quote that says, if you believe it, you're halfway there.
There's the other one. I think it was it Henry Ford or something, where he's like, if you believe you can or you believe you can't, you're right.
Yeah, exactly. It really is like that. And these stories are humongous to us. It's literally like, if you rewind the clock in history, if you rewind it far enough, it's all a mystery. Like nothing connects. Like, yeah, science says that, the universe came from a tiny little dot or gravity or force or whatever. But humans, consciousness, what we are, you're rewriting the clock and we don't know. We really don't know. And just like that, you can make a new story. And that new story can be you waking up tomorrow. Like who you are when you woke up this morning could have been somebody completely different yesterday. But you wouldn't know it because you can be programmed during your sleep. And you can reprogram yourself by telling yourself you're going to be this or do that. And that pushes you into the unknown and it reveals things you never thought you could do.
Mm. I read that book that you gave me, or the one that you told me about at the bar. The something Murphy. Is it Joseph Murphy?
Joseph Murphy.
Is it Joseph Murphy? The one where it's like, he's all talking about subliminally, talking to your subconscious, like before you go to bed and when you wake up.
Well, it's like, it's the same reason why kids absorb stuff. It's like they're in like delta and theta waves, and not until you get older, we're like in alpha beta waves, and like it's a higher frequency. So back to the whole thing, it's more solid, and so to speak, in a roundabout way, that it can't take anything in. But when you're in a relaxed state, allowance, whatever, or you're in delta and theta, you're absorbing these things. And I think that kind of goes to the point of the ripple effect, or everything's connected. You can wake up a certain way and choose how to live your life. And how you choose to live that life is going to affect everything around you. You say hi to somebody, you smile at somebody, you're rude to somebody, that can ruin and ripple their whole day. It could just go haywire, or it can be great. So it's like, we're all kind of connected. And I believe and I think this is where the misconception are. We all are God, but we're not God. We're God in the sense that we can do that, but like, I'm not like, I am God. And I think that's where the misconception, we all are part of God. So we have the free will, like you're saying, to wake up how we want. We also, when you talk about, the movies, this and that, it's like, we think there's stories. It's like, we think in images. Mm-hmm. And that why is movies so popular? Why are stories so popular? Because when you're hearing a story, you're visually thinking in pictures. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And it's like, that really kind of dictates our beliefs. So when someone tells you something, half the time we don't even understand what somebody's telling us, because I can never understand exactly what you're saying, even if I think I do.
You're interpreting it.
I'm interpreting it from my perception, my reality, my beliefs, back to identifying, I grew up in Vegas, I did that. It's like, we form these attachments that create our identity. Mm-hmm. Means this is mine, this is me. And then all of a sudden you take this, now I'm upset because I formed this attachment to it. Mm-hmm. Well, I'm forming an attachment whenever we're creating these stories and how we can change them. We're keeping it solid. Like, this is the known. I know I grew up in Vegas and I'm this way because my dad was this way or my mom was this way. Mm-hmm. It's too scary to go in the unknown. So we're forming these attachments to it, but also these attachments are hurting us more. Mm-hmm. Almost like strings on, or like whether it's like roots of a tree or ropes connecting you to everything. The more you form attachments, the more you're identifying, you're creating a connection to something. Mm-hmm. That's right. When none of that is, and then you can change that connection and create a new reality and create your new perception. Mm-hmm. And the only way to really do it is to be open and to realize, like, none of this is me. Mm-hmm. Like and there is a purpose, I believe, for everybody. Like, you had a drive to leave Arizona. Now, some people that stayed in Arizona, maybe they didn't grow in the same way you did, but there's a purpose of them being there and having a family and doing that, because that keeps that little ecosystem working. You transferring to another ecosystem and everybody else keeps that working. And we all have these own paths for whatever reason. And sometimes people just stay in their certain place because they're too scared. And then sometimes people leave because they're too scared to stay there. Mm-hmm. I'm scared of being like what I believe my parents were and this and that. So I got to run from it and I got to go seek out. And then there's other people where like the fear of going out is so unknown that I'm scared of doing that. Mm-hmm. And I feel like there's a purpose for all of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's beyond our conception.
It really is.
Or perception or any of it.
Yeah. Yeah. And
is it important to know that purpose? Or
I don't think you can ever know that purpose. Yeah. Like, cause it's being written.
I think
as
it changes.
You're going.
I think it changes too.
Yeah. Yeah. Like
that's life.
Purpose is like meaning is continually growing and changing.
It's kind of like driving. You can only see up to the horizon. Beyond that, it's a mystery. But you got to keep going, you know? There's many paths, many roads. You can go off-road if you want. You can make your own road. But it's still the horizon is the limit.
Yeah, where you could see.
Like
you look at the ocean, there's that horizon. But if you're you go far enough, there's another piece of land.
Yeah.
You can't see it.
You can't see it. You can't see it.
So you guys are flat earthers?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
Dude, he had a guy on, it was our friend actually. We used to live right next to him. He totally believed in flat earth.
Yeah. And nothing against him. Maybe he's right. I've never been in space, so I just find it just much more of compelling and logical story that it's spherical rather than flat.
Well, it's like the same thing where the belief was the sun rises.
Get me another beer too.
The sun rises and sets. Mm-hmm. We revolve around the sun.
Exactly.
So our position to the sun is what makes it appear to be. I mean, it's
right.
It's like magic. It really is. The illusion is just what we can see.
Exactly. And it's. I mean, like numbers are the craziest thing. Like the invention of numbers and how perfectly they are symmetrical and work with each other. And it tells the story of nature and how physics work and all this. It's crazy.
Well, look at a computer. All programs are ones and zeros.
Yeah. Like, and it works fantastically and it works every time, you know, obviously there's limits to them. There are certain equations that it can't compute because there's infinite numbers. Just the fact that there's infinite numbers is kind of crazy, you know, like that's what gives us our perception of infinity. Like it never ends, like pi. There is no real number for how the circumference of a circle is. That's how crazy numbers are. Like,
did you know there's not infinite numbers though?
What?
There's not infinite numbers.
Explain yourself.
There's not infinite numbers.
So don't leave us hanging like that. Like, what the fuck? So I want to say yes, there are. And then we're gonna go back and forth forever.
So here's the thing. So if you think about what infinity is, infinity cannot have any definition to it. So infinity, by its own definition, means there's no boundary. So there is no measurement of infinity. So anytime you measure infinity, you're creating something finite out of infinity. So you can't have infinite numbers, which is to say you can't have infinite parts.
Well, you're encapsulating it.
It's another way of saying is that finite objects can be a part of infinity, but you can't have infinite objects. Which is to say that
it's kind of going. I read a book. I think it's the Torah, or like the original part of the Bible or whatever, where they won't use. They have all these different names for God, like Yahweh, this and that, and it's like they won't use an actual name to define it because now you're putting it into this object. And then I feel like that's the same thing you're saying with the numbers. It's like if it's infinite, it's never ending. But if I can put a number on it, I've stopped it.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, that's how we got to 3.14, right?
It keeps going.
But yeah,
so it does, but we just stopped it there because we just got to work with that.
But here's the thing is like
people know like 100 different decimals of pi. Like that's like a thing, and then they can only remember so many. Sorry.
I was gonna say it's a weird paradox, which is that you can count infinitely, which is that you can continue to count. and create numbers. But numbers aren't infinite, which is to say infinite is by definition not countable. Infinite is not measurable. It's immeasurable. It doesn't have a boundary. It doesn't have restrictions.
It's our way of just to communicate.
Yeah. The idea of that. Yeah. You can like, things seem to go on for an extended period of time.
It's the same thing. Like you're kind of saying in another way, like an analogy of it, the horizon. Mm-hmm. You're saying the horizon, it looks like everything stops there. Mm-hmm. But technically, is there even a horizon if it can continue to go?
Yeah. The closer you get to the horizon, the same distance still remains, just more of the horizon. You know what I mean?
It's just a way I feel like to communicate.
Yeah.
So that
language needs it to be finite.
Well, and that's what makes everything. I mean, I'm sure you speak Spanish, and like you'll say, I talk to a lot of people, and they're like, I can't really translate it in English. You just wouldn't understand. It doesn't have the same meaning. Like it's almost like taking the value away from it.
Yeah.
By saying it's like this. Exactly. When it's like, no, you don't understand. Mm-hmm. I watched it. I think it was Hillsdale College, and they do like the book of Genesis and this and that. And there's one professor that talks about it, and he talks about the prodigal son story. I'm sure you heard about it. One son goes away and takes away, just parties and pillages, and the other son stays there, works the farm. And then the other son comes, and then the dad has a party and slaughters the,
best calf.
And it's like, he started saying when he was telling him, it's almost like, kings never got up out of their chair. Kings never bowed to anybody. Everybody came to them, and yet he ran, knelt, and wept for the return. Like the gravity of that is hard to explain. It's almost like if we're telling somebody a story of how everybody was during COVID and over toilet paper and stuff, you never understand it unless you experience. Like we can't understand anything without experience.
My analogy towards that, it would be like, how do you explain or tell somebody a color that's blind or colorblind? Like you can't explain a color to somebody. A color is very visceral. It's very visual.
I slap them and I say that feels like red.
Well, and then how they perceive it in their brain.
Yeah, it's not there.
It's not there.
Yeah, or same goes with somebody that's deaf. You can't explain to them language or music. Because they don't have that.
What it really is, color anything, like everything around us is constantly moving. So like, like the primary colors, what's it? Red, green and yellow, or blue and yellow.
Blue.
It's red, blue, and yellow, right?
Yellow. Turquoise, tan, and off orange.
Well, if you take
RGB,
I saw somebody a photographer doing this, and like if you take gels and you put a yellow gel, a red gel, and a blue gel on the light. And you shoot it on somebody, like, okay, if blue's coming this way, you're going to have a blue shadow. If yellow's going this way, you have a yellow shadow. But where they intersect is white.
Right.
And it's pure white. And that's where like it started. I could kind of understand when everybody says white is all colors.
Right.
And black is the absence of color. Mm-hmm. So it's like, the color is an energy and constantly moving, and it's a perception based on a reaction with our eyes and all this chemical stuff going on in our body that we even perceive what red is. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But I have to label it as something for communication.
Exactly. Language is a huge like connector, but also a huge like blocker.
Yeah.
Like there's so much more you can, if we do reach a level of like, kind of like sharing our own feelings with each other, we would have a much deeper sense of each other's
and that's
world.
What women do.
That's why communication is important. You got to communicate on anything.
I'm
learning that as a manager of a restaurant. I'm learning that as a person who's involved in a serious relationship. It's like, you got to communicate. That's what makes healthy dynamics.
But women sometimes don't communicate. They expect you already know. And that's the hard part. Trust me.
Well, it's like a connection of the two.
Yeah.
What do you mean?
But you have to have a connection of the two, because somebody's feeling a certain way without you communicating. And if you want to get certain things done, you're feeling a certain way within you, but not until you communicate do you release that built up stored energy and whatever's trying to be accomplished. And there's a kind of like a peace on both sides. Like, like you're saying with your girlfriend, like, I'm realizing at work, I'm realizing this when I don't communicate. It's like, we're almost with communication, we're like pulling the valve and releasing this stored up emotion that's inside of us.
Right.
But that's a combination of both. It's a combination of the visceral feeling that's coming from your internal organs and your brain coming together to figure out how to funnel it out.
Right.
Yeah. And I feel like stories kind of get closer to that because when you tell a really good, compelling story about your life and you use good visuals, good emotions, good scenarios and how you overcome them and stuff like that, like a kind of whole hero's journey kind of thing, it really gets that emotion across. And makes people, that's why people that are like Martin Luther King, kind of bringing it back to him, the whole speech, Martin Luther King, the whole speech, I have a dream. Everybody can relate to that, everybody has dreams.
A dream's a vision.
Yeah. There you go. And it totally puts that idea and that emotion across to everybody, and
what's it really do? Why do you connect with it? It gives you the opportunity to formulate your own pictures of that,
right?
And putting your own life experience that you can somewhat come together to relate to what's going on, and for them to he could say that thing, but if you're not really thinking about it or imagining it, or you don't have experience, you're not going to connect with it. That's helping us connect. And I think that circles back to the kid thing. Like if kids are stuck with iPads, they're losing that ability to formulate their thoughts and imaginations to really connect. And you could see the loss of connection. Like if you go to talk to somebody or give them your phone number or whatever, it's like a weird thing. It's like, give me your IG or text me. It's like people, or you go up and you start talking to somebody like you're kind of crazy, and it's my generation. We kind of did that, but it was even weird when people from the Midwest or South, they're so overly talking that it was even weird when I was like, whoa, dude, like, stay over there, give some space.
Right.
We're kind of afraid of that connection. And I think we have been losing it over time.
Yeah.
When you think like it takes a village to raise a child and all those things they talk about back in the days or these like indigenous places that you go to, all they have is the communication and their network and their family. And that's it. And it's like, the more we start separating ourselves, we've kind of been doing it, and it like exponentially now, it just continues to go faster. And I believe worse, like, it's hard for people to communicate. And then because they can't communicate right away, they're fighting you and saying, you don't understand. And that's not right. And you don't know what I'm going through. And it's like, but they can't even help. They can't even, not that we ever really could that well communicate in a way to articulate, to tell you what I feel. I feel like it's getting harder and harder to even get somewhat close.
Well, that's why there's like there's balance to like walk between like being like wholeheartedly yourself, like being wholeheartedly present and like involved in a moment, but not being creepy. Like there's like the
genius and the crazy.
Well, it's like there's a fine line. It's like, and I think it comes down to being aware. Like you got to be situationally aware. Like
reading the room.
Like there's a guy that like we essentially had to 86 him from a restaurant because he came in one time and he was like sitting at the bar, started out nonchalant, like, just a regular patron. And then he ended up like asking the bartender for her number. And then that was like, all right, that's a one-off. It's weird, whatever. And then he moved seats to like get to somebody else closer to like that was in the bar. And he like started talking to them. And then he asked them for a shot. So it's like, it's increasingly like you're invading space, but like there's a way to do that where you could make friends at the bar, or you could even connect with the bartender and walk away with a number.
It's socially awkward.
Yeah. He's just, so it's like, it's the boundary of finding how to be yourself and how to get whatever it is that you want and connect but not push the boundaries to where, you know, you're making either somebody feel awkward or you're making, you know, the situation.
Well, another level to that is how many times, if he was a very attractive person or had a lot of money, he would not be 86th.
Yeah.
Different.
Like everybody would be open to that conversation, or like a beautiful girl comes in the room, or, you know, or someone ugly. It's just anybody that's physically beautiful or has a lot of money or power or success. We're more likely
the boundary is pushed a little bit. Sorry.
You're 100. That's fine. That's exactly where I was going. I was at a restaurant with a manager, and there was one manager that ended up getting fired for sexual harassment. We had another manager that was did way more worse stuff, but because he was like ripped and attractive. And then there was another one, like they liked his English accent. So it's like, it's acceptable.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, yeah, back to your saying, read the room, being socially awkward. And that's kind of what you're talking to. Like, you know, when you're stuck with the iPad, how do you connect with your people around you if you never know what an iPad and this is? Because you're not going to be able to read that room. Mm-hmm. You're not going to be able to understand.
Yeah, that's a good full circle back.
And it's interesting because the boundaries are really set by our perception of what's going on. And now you get biased because this person's saying I'm an extra. Like in the year I grew up, it was common for people to go and give somebody the number or try and buy someone a drink and talk to them. And it was like, you're just kind of used to it. Now I feel like, not saying it was appropriate then or with certain people or not. Back then, that's how you met somebody. That's how people got married. That's how, you know, you flirted. You did this, you did right. That was the only way to do it. Now it's like sexual harassment or this and that. It's like, how did you know if you didn't try? Yeah. And half the marriages wouldn't have happened if that person wasn't a creep, right, so to speak, or different how we look at it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, it's context. It's like you're at a bar, it's one thing. You go to a club, whole different thing. You go to a rave, whole different thing. You go to church, a whole different thing. It's like different things are appropriate in different places, you know? And it's only, you got to figure out how to navigate.
It only matters if the other person is receptive to it. Cause you'll hear a lot of, like, especially like older women hear the story. He just kept trying and wouldn't stop. And I just kept showing up and I kept giving her flowers and I kept doing this. And right. Like anybody else, like you're a stalker.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like you're literally like a stalker right now. You followed her to work. And I met this one guy that he was talking about. He got into, he was doing stocks and he's like, I'm so glad because I was able to travel and we're married now, but he's like, I had the free time to travel wherever she was. Essentially, he's like a stalker.
Yeah.
Like, eventually I broke her down and she realized what she was missing. That was like what he was saying about it. And now they're like married and everything's great.
Right.
But had he not like been that stalker, and done those things,
the wrong time prison, we went to jail.
Or if she didn't find him attractive, or something else, he would have went to jail.
Exactly.
It's so true.
Exactly.
Context.
It's some people are gifted with beauty. Some people are gifted with charisma. Mm-hmm. Some people are gifted with money and status and power. And that's the world we live in. And we somehow need to navigate that world. And it's difficult sometimes because we kind of want those things. And those things sometimes you can develop. Like charisma, you can build charisma. You can build influence, you know? And it kind of going back to what you were saying, it really is the setting where you are. Is it the proper place to be influencing, or is it the proper place to stay in line and go along with the crowd, you know, and then pick your chances when
I feel like it's generational too. It's like styles of clothes. Mm. This is cool. This is not. And then eventually it circles back at some point. Like, you know, it feel like it's like, you know, I remember in like the 90s, like disco 70s, it's like, I feel like a 20-year gap. You know what I mean? And then like you're in the 2000s, like 80s stuff was cool. Mm-hmm. And I feel like all that comes into play with it. Mm-hmm. Like you could do charisma, or somebody's really good with speech and how they talk. They know the right word, they're quick-witted, and they know exactly what to say, the pickup lines and this and that.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's also the timing of it went not only in the realm of generationally or whatever decade we're in, but the timing that happens, was the person tired? What happened to them? Would they have been okay to receive it if it was under a different situation, or because of what they're doing or going through in their own personal life, or where their focus is and not being present is what really the issue is. It's everything is like,
it's kind of like
here's a date question for you guys. If there was one trait that you would want to improve on in yourself, or that you'd want to get better at, what would it be? Like, what's a trait that you...
Communication.
You want to be a better communicator? That's good. I like that.
Yeah, communication, I think, is key in most things. You know what I mean? Like,
that's why this is good. Like, honestly, this is... And I know you like podcasting, and you seem like someone who likes to like converse. But like, I love, if I could do this for a living, podcasting or just talking in general. That's why eventually I do want to travel and like be on debate panels and like talk about theoretical ideas, because this is so fun for me. Like even if you take away all the equipment, it's like I would still love to just bullshit and like banter.
Well, like that was my whole reason I did this, is because how many times did we, living together, you and I and Neil,
right? We just talked for hours.
The power went out, and we're like, just started talking about philosophy and
talk radio,
ideas. Like literally, the three of us would just talk for hours and hours about just random stuff. A lot of it is about, navigating reality, navigating our world, navigating, trying to achieve the things we want to achieve, and that triggered all of this, also, listening to Joe Rogan. He was a big influence on me, and I liked it a lot. And I knew that I could do it sort of the same way, because I have all the equipment literally in storage. So I could just pull that out, make it, dress it up a little, and then voila. Now we could talk and spread it to the world. Whether they want to hear it, it's up to them. If they don't want to hear it, they don't have to watch it. But I like the process of this. Yeah. Even the
it's just so hard to set up. That's the hard part.
Okay, well, take this a step further. From the time we're kids, what are we trying to do?
Fucking eat.
We're trying to be heard, to be understood. Right. I'm here. Notice me.
Right.
So when we're able to communicate, it's our way of trying to connect with somebody and have them really connect with us and understand on a certain level. It's like we want that. We need that connection. It's a human thing that we need.
Right.
And like,
what is that?
Mom, Dad, me. I'm here. Notice me.
Yeah.
And so what we'll do, we'll scream, we'll come up with these creative ways we'll throw a tantrum. We'll maybe, they talk about it in the 4 agreements. You have ways of getting energy. You have the aloof that's like, oh, I'm good, this and that, because they're trying to reel you in to get you to ask more questions. You have the interrogator, where were you, this and that.
I remember that.
And then, they go into that, the intimidator, where, and all, they go into the different.
And they'll like counterbalance each other.
They counterbalance each other, but they're all like traits that we're trying to give and receive energy. And if you're dominating my energy, I got to fill up my cup somehow. And so I have to come up with a way of this. And it's like, that's what we're trying to do when we're talking. It's like, I think our whole lives, we just feel misunderstood. And I think part of that is we don't understand ourselves.
Yeah. I feel like we're oftentimes trying to find our place in the world, and that's why we try different outfits. We try speaking a different way. We try to get the attentions of others, to spread, to get influence, to be part of something more than just yourself.
You want to be, except the same thing why people wear the same jeans or you want the outfit. We're all trying to get acceptance.
Yeah.
So do you think like the yogis or the people who become recluse, like, are they doing it because they don't need that acceptance, or do they find another way to acceptance, or do they like...
I mean, I would.
What journey are they on to get?
I would say their journey is to find a way to not need it. Not necessarily they're doing it for a reason to show something or whatever, but it's like
still the same thing, just a different path to it, kind of.
And I feel like how can you be? It's like you're in a restaurant, right? And like, and all this stuff's coming at you at once. Like you almost need to like, whoa, stop one at a time, please. I can't, you need this, he needs that check that, this guy's that. And there's so much going at us. Like humans, we can't really multitask. And there's been a bunch of studies that have proved that. Mm-hmm. I mean, the subconscious, if you want to say, kind of can, because the heart and the lungs and it's operating. Yeah. But as from a mental standpoint in our brain, we can't do more things than once.
Like taskers.
You can't multitask.
Yeah.
So it's like, how do you get these answers? And I think that even is what prayer is about, and meditation. And meditation's the same as prayer. It's like Joe Dispenza talks about the word meditation means to know thyself. And how can you really know thyself if you have a lot of distractions? So the only to know thyself would to be by yourself.
Interesting.
And I feel like that's that makes the most sense to me. To be the greatest version of yourself, you have to be with yourself. And you have to, you face your fears and you face all these things and these demons, but you can't do it with a lot of distraction.
Do you feel like you know yourself now?
I'm constantly trying to get to know myself. I think the benefit as far as that, and in some ways it's not a benefit, is like, like people I know that have kids that are my age, they've evolved in a certain way that's actually surprising to me internally, but they kind of had to for their child because that was their purpose. And then there's other personal things that they had to sacrifice because something's more important to them. Whereas for someone like me, I just have me. So all I have to do is focus on myself. But then I'm losing that purpose of it's about somebody else kind of thing, because it ends up just kind of becoming about how do I get better? What can I do? This and that, where they kind of naturally evolve and become better people based on doing everything for somebody else.
Interesting.
Being of service. You know what I mean? So because they're service to something greater than themselves, they evolve. But then there's certain things within them, like their beliefs and stuff that they haven't, or fears they haven't been able to work through. Yeah. Whereas I'm working on clearing myself so I can be of service.
What does that mean? Clearing yourself? Like getting rid of the distractions, getting rid of
clearing whatever, these limiting beliefs, these ideas I have, these insecurities that I have. Like, how can you really be of service? Being of service is not about you, but clearly if I'm still working on myself, my life is about me.
Right. It's like a catch-22 almost. It's tricky.
Yeah. I feel like that's the journey of life, that's the developing of yourself. It's like an ongoing project. And sometimes you ever kind of had your own place and then you move things around and you kind of whoa, this looks so much more different, looks better, I feel rejuvenated in some way. Or you clean the house really good. I'm oh, I feel like I did something really good and I got something out of me, you know what I mean? I cleaned out. Or go to the gym, got a good workout in, and you're oh yeah, I worked hard. You get this sense of accomplishment, this sense of beginning, middle, and end kind of thing. And it's and I feel like life is a lot about developing yourself, defining and redefining yourself.
Well, and that goes back to what ultimately are all those things. They're change. Yeah. And what is change? Change is growth. Change is life. Change is movement.
That's right. And when you discover yourself and you know yourself, you kind of limit yourself to that definition.
But you never know yourself. It's like the more you think you know yourself, the less you know about yourself.
Exactly. And guess who knows himself all the time. And we get into debates on this all the time. So this guy right here, he's oftentimes telling me, I know myself and I know what I gotta do because I know about gravity and pressure and all this crap. And I'm like, okay, bro, see how well you're doing.
Yeah.
Anyways, have you guys, I know you said you were reading a book.
I mean, I'm doing audiobook. My hang up is I'm too much at once. Back to the not focusing on anything. I got like 3 or 4 books I'm kind of reading. I'm trying to read the Bible. I got an audiobook of it. I just listened to a book by Pema, I think Chandra, or how you talk. It's like she like lived with monks for a while, and then like, you know, I'm studying all these different things. I'm just like everywhere.
Right. That's good. I think that's good.
It is, and it isn't. It is in a way that like you kind of get a little bit of all this stuff, but it's like the jack of all trades, master of none kind of thing.
What do you guys think of mantras?
The proper way to do it. What's
and
that?
What do you guys think of mantras? And do you guys have a mantra for yourself, or have you ever had a mantra?
Well, I feel for me, I'm looking at mantras different than most people believe.
Okay.
So like when you think of words, so like they talk about whatever you say is spelling is casting a spell. Spelling is casting spells. When you're spelling a word, you're casting a spell. Your negative self-talk or how you talk about yourself is casting a spell. And your mantra could be, I'm stupid, or I don't deserve anything. I don't look at it as a mantra as like, you know, I'm meditating.
Theme for my life.
Yeah, a theme for my life as I feel like the mantra is creating that spell that I can benefit from.
Right. So do you have a mantra, or have you guys ever had a mantra?
Not really.
I think I do, but I think you have a different definition of what that is. Tell us yours.
What's your definition of mantra? Mine is essentially what he's saying, where it's just, so for me in my personal journey, I've had a couple different mantras that have like totally driven me, and like, for whatever reason, they have naturally progressed me to like different plateaus of learning. Like one, when I was like 18, was I seek truth and wisdom. And that, for whatever reason, just like I had a burning desire to understand whatever truth and wisdom is, you know? So like I literally would, you know, say it again and again and again. And eventually I came to my own understanding of what truth and wisdom is, you know? And I remember when I was like younger too, even my parents and my brothers used to make fun of me because I would like walk around the house and I'd like stand on my tippy toes. And I'd always be like, oh, I'm going to be 6'3". And I'd always like tell them like, you just watch. And I was like such a little baby. I was like 5'1", you know, everyone was taller than me. I was already like 14, but then I like shot up to like 6 foot. You know, obviously it's not 6'3", but still it's like, I remember.
You would have been 5'7".
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. Right.
But I don't know. It's interesting. I definitely, I don't know if credit is the right word, but I definitely, you know, appreciate mantras and how, you know, the actual impact that I've seen them, you know, to have in my life.
Now, is that would they get the same thing as prayer?
I think here's what I think it is. I think it's automatic prayer. Essentially, it's a way to like, kind of, you know, if you're talking about like radio signals, for me, mantras have been over a time period. It's a way to continually fine tune your signal. So like one mantra that I always have, anytime I have a negative thought that comes to my head that I can like automatically identify that it's negative, I'll like say the mantra, just the word love. Like I'll just be like, love, 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 until I like nullify it or negate whatever that thought or emotion I had that was, you know, coming to me for whatever reason. And that has been one powerful mantra for me over a period of time, that has gotten to a point where I'm almost able to instantly shift away from any sort of negative energy. And that, you know, that's just from the word, you know, repeating love. And so I think essentially to me, it's essentially prayer. A mantra is, but it's a prayer that you have ingrained as far as like a pathway in your brain, like a synapse, to whatever link, to whatever core trait or, you know, principle that you've created for yourself. And it might be like, I'm a sexy bitch or whatever, you know, like who cares? You can create your own mantra. But if you repeat that, and anytime you have a thought that's different for that, or anytime you just, you know, want to think about that, it totally just fine tunes that signal. Whatever your signal is at, the more you say that, whatever you create for your mantra, you're just taking that dial and just just adjusting it back just a little bit closer towards whatever that signal is of your mantra. So it's kind of, it's a prayer, but it's a prayer that's become so habitual and so instinctual that it has power. So it has the ability to motivate you and kind of like impress upon you, I think. So that's mantras, I think, are definitely have been a huge
Isn't
part
that
of my
also
life.
like positive affirmations?
Yeah. So, I mean, in the same way, it's like people wake up and they'll say, you know, have positive affirmations in the beginning of the day. You know, they'll write some stuff in a book. And I think all of that works. But a mantra specifically, from the way that I'm, you know, articulating it, it would be something that is usually I feel like you want to stick to like 3 or less mantras, which essentially they're like life principles. So they're like, they are your North Star for, you know, who you are and what you want in your life.
Would you say it's keeping you present and focused and creating that laser focus of where or what you want to be? Because it's almost like the same thing, like you noticing you having the negative thought and creating the love to change that thought is keeping you present of what you're going through now and keeping you aware of it. The fact that you are becoming present and aware of it is the only way that you can actually evolve from it. So would you look at it as more of a mantra is another way of being present with a goal, so to speak, or a direction, no different than like you looking at your hand to stop your mind from going crazy and noticing the different wrinkles or the different things. But that is just keeping you present, where the mantra is taking that a step further to give you direction.
Yeah. I think you're closer to it with the direction, which is to say, because we are not static, we are always in motion. Whatever you do is going to put you in some sort of directive. You know, it's going to put you down some path. So it's like, if you're looking at your hand, that is directing you in a particular direction. And maybe that direction is simply being, you know, maybe it's simply peace or the now without anything else that's going on. So if you're having negative thoughts, boom, you're here now, you're present, and everything is nullified, including whatever you had for a desire in the future, or, you know, however you thought about the past or whatever. So it's like that would be one particular type of, you know, mantra or perspective. But specifically in the way that I've seen personal growth, for myself, mantras have been really powerful as far as like having, a saying or a little quip that like puts you back in the focus of like, all right, this is me. This is where I'm heading and this is what I want. Because specifically it's a directive towards something. So if you're looking at your hand, it's directing you towards being present. And being present really is, you know, it's everywhere and nowhere. So it's like, you know, that is a direction, but it's also like a non-direction in a way. Whereas, if you have a particular say, you can focus right in on whatever it is that you want to go.
Whenever I have negative thoughts, kind of like what you're saying, I just laugh. I laugh. I am a strong believer in comedy.
Yeah.
And I feel like you should laugh some of those things off when all the odds are against you and the day can't get any worse.
Right.
And you say that to yourself and you're like, and it gets worse. And you're like, somebody's trying to teach me something here. You know what I mean? And I always tell myself, just listen to that little voice in the back of your head saying, it's going to get better.
Well, and that goes to that.
Well, there's your mantra.
Yeah.
It's going to get better. That's your mantra.
Well, and then it's like they talk about no man's your friend, no man's your enemy, but every man's your teacher.
Right. Yeah.
Like
no, yeah. Yeah.
So like all those things happen to you, causing you to laugh.
Yeah.
It's caused you to create a mantra.
Yeah.
They taught you how to have a mantra.
In a way. Yeah. I feel like a lot of that stuff is just trying to hold you down and beat you down. And I feel like a lot of that is why you should be so strong, and you shouldn't let that stuff get over you.
But that's why you become strong. Because of it.
In a way, yeah.
It's funny. You just reminded me of a mantra that I had that I totally don't use anymore, but I used to use it all the time, and it was so good, especially when I was bartending. And like, I feel like especially when you're bartending, like people get on your nerves. Like, it's a whole different scene behind a busy bar. Uh-huh. And it was everything's for my benefit. So same kind of line, you know, on the same thought of like what you're saying, which is like things are going to get better. You know, it's kind of like
Yeah.
Everything's for my benefit. Everything is pushing in a positive direction for me. Even though I may not be able to see it from my perspective right now, I know everything is for my benefit. And I used to say that all the time.
I forget where I read this or heard this, but somebody was saying, it might have been Mel Robbins or somebody, where anytime you have it, you just say to yourself, it's just a thought. It's just a thought.
It is.
And so you're not formulating an attachment to anything. It's just, it's just a thought. Or there's another one, if someone cuts you off or something, it's like, I've done that before.
Yeah.
It's like, totally. I've done that before.
Yeah, comedy's so good at that. You know, like, it's I mean, if you have humor, like irony is a real thing. You know, it really changes your mood. Like, they say that just laughing in a bad scenario changes your mood, changes your energy. Right. And I mean, I don't really have any good comedy skits besides laughing at your problems, but they say, kind of like what you just said, Wayne Dyer said that be open to everything and attached to nothing. And that will give you the opportunity and the tools to learn from everything, you know? Yeah. And that alone taught me a lot about what I believe and what people tell me, and gives me the perspective that I don't have all the answers and I might be wrong, and that's okay.
Now, I was just thinking this as you're saying it, and do you think by laughing, okay, like the solar plexus, we store all our fears and anxiety. So when we're laughing, not only are we activating the neurological pathways in our gut, but we're also breaking up that energy and expelling it.
In a way.
And because why do we really get to the point where we're angry or whatever, it's a fear kind of based thing. Yeah. It's like a survival kind of based thing. And they talk about like animals, like if you notice a deer after it gets chased by a lion, it does this shake thing to like dissipate all this energy.
Right.
And then it goes back to grazing like nothing else. And Joe Dispenza talks about it. And a lot of us, we just keep this energy has nowhere to go. And it's like the atom bomb. When you force this energy, it's just going to explode.
Right.
So laughing is a way of breaking up that. Yeah. So it doesn't become a toxin in your body, or you take it home and you're actually kind of dealing. It's kind of, I feel like it's almost like a cheat code to dealing with something rather than drugs or alcohol.
Yeah.
Because you're actually releasing the energy instead of just avoiding it.
Right. Yeah. And it's more of like not trying to redirect that negative energy to a positive direction. It's more of like acknowledging it and not letting it affect you, you know? Because so many times do I hear people like, I need to think positively. I need to give myself positive affirmations. I feel like that's such a cop out, and like you're trying to hack yourself. You don't get to hack yourself. You get to deal with your problems, and you take responsibility and you press on. Don't let that shit hold you down.
Well, I think the difference is it's like when you're saying I need something, first of all, it's not 100% accurate because there's a few things we actually need, you know, oxygen, food and water, and certain periods of time. So you're putting something and saying your need, and you're also putting a pressure on it and also saying that you're not that way or don't have that. So when you're angry, when you're saying I need, it's more like you're fighting it. Almost like your parent telling you, I need you to do that. You're forcing this like need. Instead of you could just be like you said, laugh or something and be like, I'm just calm. I'm cool. I'm going to be calm.
But I think there is another level to it, which is to recognize that everything literally is for your benefit, even all the way like unto death. It's like if you can become complete, you know, if you can completely accept or realize that everything is here to push you to where you need to be, or it's pushing you in a direction that's positive, then you don't see on like a graph, you know how you have like ups and downs. You don't see as though like one direction is positive and one direction is negative. You just see yourself as the line, and every direction.
Well, and that's like a heart monitor. It's
Right.
like and
every direction is a movement, and we're attributing this direction as positive and this direction is negative, but they can both be positive.
Mhm.
You're the line. You are the undefined.
well, that's life. It's a sine wave.
Yeah.
And so
And
we attribute it based upon our perception. You know,
100%.
Yeah.
in my opinion.
It's a crazy world out there, and everybody has their own tools and their own way of navigating it. They all have their own compass of life, and a lot of my compass has been influenced by the people around me. And I didn't choose this. Like a lot of what I do, I don't have much control to it. I realize that.
Well, think about that. Well, here's the thing. You have more control, I believe, than you think. But you take the greatest athlete, they practice all the time, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when you're trying to learn something in school, you have a pop quiz. I feel like these are life's way of giving you that practice and pops quiz to keep you sharp. Whenever you don't use something, you lose it.
Mm-hmm.
So if I don't use my right arm because it's broken, when it comes out of the cast, it's going to be weaker.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't get into the situations that make you angry, and if life doesn't throw these things at you, back to going to what you're saying, like everything happens for a reason or a purpose. It's like, this is to keep you sharp. And this is probably preventing something that would be harder on you in the future because you're continually working on it now.
Mm-hmm. Right.
It's like if you ask God for patience, he's going to give you situations where you're going to, practice patience. If you want to be strong, he's going to give you situations where you have to work on yourself.
You want more courage, you're going to have more stuff to be fearful of. Like, be careful what you wish for. God gives you what you want. Right?
Yeah. I mean, and you gotta, I feel like I've established a good baseline in which what is a good life? Like, am I living a good life?
No.
Right. And sometimes when life kind of throws curveballs at you and you don't know whether things are going to get better or this looks like a really bad problem, I don't know how I'm going to navigate it. You look at what you already have, right? Do I still have a job? Yes. Do I still have a car? Yes. Right. Do I have my hands and legs and house and my girlfriend, her daughter, people that love me around me? Right. Yes. A lot of our problems are imaginary. Right. They haven't even happened, but we can perceive them happening. The bill coming in that we don't have money for. The car that might have an issue because I haven't changed the, oil.
Right. Yeah, my aunt has this saying where it's like, if you're saying you have a problem, that means there's a solution.
Mm-hmm. That's good.
And so it's like our perception of a problem.
I heard it different.
Something that's going to hinder us. But if you have a problem, then that means there's a solution for it. And your job is to just find that solution.
Yeah, I heard it a little different. I heard it as we don't have problems. We have inconveniences. Because when you have a problem, you can't do anything about it. But if you have an inconvenience or you have a quote unquote problem, but you can do something about it, you have an inconvenience.
Right.
So like, you got to just do this extra thing to get rid of this problem. When you have a problem, it's when you don't have any food. You're going through war. The world is falling apart.
Yeah, but you figure out people survive. Every invention started from a problem.
Exactly.
Right.
It really is.
I mean? You couldn't get running water to somebody or sewage to somebody or food to somebody.
They figure it out.
You figured it out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, it really is. It really is. Somehow, some way, people figure it out because they have no other choice sometimes.
You have to.
Yeah, you have no other choice. In fact, life is simple when it's like that because the objective is right in front of you. When you have all the options of the world, as an 18-year-old, my mom asked me, what do you want to do with your life? And I was like, what? I don't fucking know. I'm about to finish high school. And now you're telling me that I need to choose right now what I'm going to do with the rest of my life? Well, are you serious?
Well, and that's, I think the misconception is there's this whole pressure on, and back to the fear of our parents, because they they want you to survive. They don't want you to starve. So there's this whole thing where what are you going to do for the rest of your life? Well, our life changes every single day. Mm-hmm. And so the rest of my life is what I'm doing for. The minute I say that part of my life is gone. Yeah.
It's happening right
So
now.
there's no such thing of doing anything for the rest of your life.
Right.
And then it's like, if that was the case, then no one would retire. You'd just be doing that till you died.
Mm-hmm. But like, I think what my mom,
she's like, what's the next step?
Yeah.
I knew what she wanted is, she was asking, what are you going to study? What are you going to do? You got to move out of the house. And what kind of assistance can I provide you so you can move out and be successful in the world? You know, because she was asking me, what college are you going to go? What are you going to study? How are you going to accomplish that? How are you going to get funding for that? What do you need from me? You know? And I was like, I don't know. Like, I'm trying to figure out this high school part, and I got a test next week that's going to dictate whether I walk and get my diploma or I need to come back for summer school. You know what I mean? I'm fucking dealing with next week. Right. Fucking 2-3 years or the next 50 years of my life. Like, I'm already dealing with a lot, and you're dumping this on me. I have no idea, but I did know that I needed to choose something that I would be happy doing for the rest of my life. And I needed to choose it in a way where she would agree with it. And it needed to be outside of where she is. And that's why I chose film. Because I always love going to the movies. I always love how they made them. And I always wanted to learn more about them. I had no idea how cameras work. I have no idea how movies were done. I had no idea how any of that stuff got together. But I knew that if I told my mom I wanted to do this, she would support me. Yeah. So therefore, I was like, yeah, I want to do film. And she's like, okay, what school you want to go? I don't know. Luckily, that same week, she asked me that. Collins College came to our high school.
Waste money at this private school?
It was such a fucking bad idea.
Way too much.
Regardless of that, it did lead me to where I am now, so I'm grateful about that. It opened the door to be like, hey, this school has a film degree. Right. I want to go to this school. And it luckily was in Phoenix.
It gave you direction.
It really did. It gave me a door I can go through. You know, I have a door. Now I just got to figure out how to get through it, you know, and that door led me to meeting this guy, and this guy got me to LA, and then LA got me to realize what else I want to do. What else is there for me? Yeah. And coming to the realization and doing the podcast has really like made me more fulfilled. It gave me more of a purpose of things that I wanted to do and want to be a part of, because not only am I building this, but it's also influencing me by your ideas. And when I put it out into the world kind of responds to my ideas. And that's something you can't normally do by working in an accounting office. You can't do it by doing almost anything else, which is remarkable. And I'm so happy I chose to do this. And I don't see myself stopping this. I just want to do this, but also support my family and also provide for my family and do all these things. And I need to figure that part out. And that's what the next step is. But
I was going to say, because I gotta head out soon, but also I'm wondering I have a question for both of you guys to bring that kind of idea to the present moment, which is, I feel like I know a little bit about where you're going or what you want, but because you just got pregnant and you obviously have a bunch of stuff.
First man pregnant.
Yeah, it's like,
that's right.
Like, I don't know what's going on in your life. And as far as like what you see for your trajectory, like this year or maybe over the next year. So I'm curious, like, what do you see coming up for you, you know, the rest of the year, or like obviously with the kid and I feel like I don't know, we haven't like hung out enough, you know, we should hang out more, but like, I feel like you're a giant mystery. I'm like, I don't know enough about you. So I'm curious in just, you know, in general terms, what do you see or what are you excited for this year?
Well, if you go first. Does he ask you?
What I see with my
Next steps
girl's
for Mario Martinez.
pregnancy and building a family, and I see it as achieving my first goal of I told myself that I was going to have kids before 35 because I want kids.
And how old are you?
How old are you?
I'm 34.
Okay.
Yeah, right at the edge.
Gotta get one out there.
Yeah, and I was against kids for quite a while because I didn't have any partners that I was like, I could trust this person with a kid, you know? And then Lily came into my life and she already had a daughter, which was great because I was like, okay, I don't have to have kids because she already has one, so I'm done with that, you know.
But you don't know how to pull out.
Yeah. And I met this girl, and everything is great. You know, we have our differences. I don't think there's a perfect relationship out there. It's all work. You gotta work at it and work on it and work at it. All the time, and communication and all that stuff. And then we got to about a year and a half of being together. And then I got this apartment by myself and I invited her. It's like, hey, you should come over and hang out, you know? And I was like, oh, well, I have my daughter. And I was like, yeah, just come through. Right. I was like, I don't have a problem with little kids, you know? And this
10
kid,
minutes later, she's living with you.
This kid, I don't know how to, it's a visceral, deep emotional connection that this kid just influenced me like right out the gate. I mean, not right out the gate, but very, very close to meeting her. Like she was just a ball of joy and freedom and innocence, and it radiated through my heart. You know what I mean? I always say that I had a hard outer shell of my heart that this little girl just melted it away.
And that's,
you know?
that's bold and like daring for her to like introduce her child to you.
In a way, yeah. And it didn't happen instantly. Like, she came over, she wanted this, she wanted that. It was like very needy and stuff. But then she went to sleep.
She's gonna watch this, right?
Couple days, sure. And a couple days she went to sleep, and she was spending the night. And Elena did, the baby. Yeah, she fell asleep and she woke up so happy. And we were there with her, so happy. She was laughing. It's like, ha, 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 ha. You know, and then she got close to Lily and she got her nose to her nose and she went like this. And then I was like, that's so cute, right? And then she came to me and she did it to me. Yeah. And just my whole body just melted. I was just like, this little girl is the heart and embodiment of my soul right now. Like, it's the cutest thing in the world. And it's like pure innocence. I want the best for her and I want to be there for her for everything and anything she needs, you know? Yeah. And it was just like, I couldn't even describe it. Those words are pale in comparison of what I felt. And I feel like that trumps everything, every odds that I have against building this podcast, of having a house, of getting a new car, of doing all this. It doesn't matter. I'll figure it out as I go. Yeah. I'll build it as I'm driving, you know? I don't care. I'm going to make it happen. Because that moment meant everything to me.
That's cool.
And it was just like...
So it sounds like you're gearing yourself towards like being, you know, having a family and like being family oriented. And that was
before she was pregnant. Like, this little girl just changed my whole perspective of kids. Right. But didn't instantly open my eyes to having my own kid. Mm-hmm. It kind of happened later on. And, you know, just to put it out there, we were pregnant and we had a miscarriage. And it was really hard on Lily and it was hard on me. But I kind of came to terms to it that, you know, like, you know, it happens, you know. You know, it's just like how it is. And then she got pregnant again. And now we're going through the motions of making sure it's healthy. She has 9 doctors, or maybe 4 doctors now.
Because she's an X-ray technician, or she's a surgical
technician. And but she's high risk right now, so that means that they're gonna monitor her very frequently, like regularly. You know, she needs to go to multiple doctors with multiple tests to do multiple checks and balances of all that stuff. off, and making sure the baby's well, she's well, and everything's going well. And I'm trying to be part of that and go to those, but I'm also trying to bring food to the table. So it's very difficult for me to work and also be there for her, because all these appointments are in the morning and that's the time I work, So we're working it out on what days I can go and what days she'll have to go on her own,
Right.
And she, I don't know if you've ever been around a pregnant girl, but she's going through so many emotions right now. It's very important that I just keep my cool and just provide for her as much as possible. But sometimes, life kind of hits you, work hits you, the car hits you, other problems hit you. And then she's like, I want Indian food. And I'm like, I hate Indian food. And I'm like, but I gotta go and figure out where to get Indian food for her,
Adapting.
Yeah. So
welcome to being a parent.
Yeah. That's how I feel right now. The odds are pale in comparison to these kids. Like it's just like, I never thought I would say that, but I really mean that,
That's cool. Yeah, you're entering into like a whole new phase in your life.
Yeah. And I didn't think I ever would be. I always told myself I was not a kid person. Yeah. I was never good with kids. But I think that was primarily because they weren't my kids, or I didn't have an emotional connection with these kids. And this little girl was just like every day, Mayo, sit down, Mayo, sit down. And I sit down and she's like showing me this and telling me that. And I don't get it, but it's the most adorable thing in the world. It's just like, melts your heart.
It's awesome. It's awesome.
Yeah.
Mario,
that's how
the dad. Yeah, I've seen you because I've never really seen you interact with her except for when you came last Sunday. And she seems like she's more developed, I think, than last time I saw her. Because last time she was a baby, even more of a toddler.
Yeah.
And now she's like, a little bit more aware and like looking around, and she seems like she was interacting with you very personally. And it's interesting to see you kind of, display parental,
she brings the teddy bear out of me.
Yeah, right.
That's for sure.
That's so cool.
Yeah,
that's great.
But that's where I'm at.
You're being supportive. That's what you should.
In a way,
support.
That's right. And and then I also look at my mom moved to the United States with 3 kids, didn't speak the language, and came here illegally, without a green card, nothing. Right. And somehow she prevailed and now has her own company making $10,000 a week. You know what I mean?
Wow.
Like doing very well, building another house behind her house.
Oh, wow.
Like success. I am so happy with my mom and so proud of her. She's doing great,
That's awesome.
But kind of going back to what you were saying, the why. She had a very strong why. She needed to feed 3 kids.
Right.
And so she fucking worked her ass off. She built a company and put us through school and provided for us.
I do feel like kids do that for some people. Like they push you like, all right,
it's not about you anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like the most successful people, it's not about them.
Right. Imagine having that drive though, like the parental drive for your craft, like coming home and working on whatever it is that you love, do it like banging on your craft so hard that you're like, man, this is my baby. This is like my thing that I take care of. It's like, once you have a kid, it's almost like it forces you to do it, whereas it's still an option. If you're single and don't have kids, you're like, all right, I could do it, or I could go, lay down and take a nap.
Yeah. One of my friends, photographer friends, his name is Jim. He's been on the podcast many times. He told me something that I don't fully get, but I'm kind of getting now. And I don't know if you guys can relate with it, but I think you guys will get it too. He said, you and your family are against the world.
We're
like,
that's one perspective. Yeah.
I think that's a belief.
There's definitely a belief, but like
you and your family are part of the world.
I am part of the world, and I know that.
But I get it. You're saying like you're like family first kind of thing. It's another way of saying family
but
first.
It's more.
It's very Game of Thrones-esque.
I'm getting it as like we're going through a journey, and it's just not me anymore, and we're all gonna figure it out together. I'm not alone. And
I could see it that way.
You know?
Yeah.
You know, and it's
worst, not you against the world now. It's like you and your family.
Yeah. Right? Yeah. Yeah. Because it was me for a long time.
You got a team.
I got a team and I need to support them.
You're the coach.
And I'm the coach. I'm leading the whole team.
Oh no.
I'm the guide, you know? And now
you need a new game plan.
Yeah, seriously. No, yeah. And it's kind of resonating with me. And he was telling, because when he told me, I was like, that's kind of messed up. You kind of want to step on other people and see success for yourself. And it's kind of selfish, you know? But then I'm kind of looking at it from a different angle now. And I'm like, I think I know what he means. And I don't know if there's better words to explain that, but I get it. Yeah. I kind of get it, you know?
It's like your base. It's your camp now. Mm-hmm. You got a family camp.
Yeah, it's a team.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what about you, Adam? What you working on? What are you excited about? Anything getting your gears going?
You know,
the next couple months, next year?
I've been like really trying to get out of bartending, and I've been like studying the markets and stuff. And I think a goal for me is to get to a point to where I'm good enough that I can help others create a financial independence so they can have time to do and develop and things that they want to do in life. And I think it comes from a point of my own fears, you know, of like not having a roof over my head or not having enough money financially or not having enough time. Yeah. And I've always felt like some need I feel like I have a purpose to try and help or give back in some way. And I'm kind of at this point, well, I need to be success, back to the need thing, right? Right. To get to a point to where I've achieved a certain amount or done a certain amount or know enough about it that now I can help spread that or teach others. You know,
that's cool. I could see you as a teacher.
So that's kind of where I'm kind of going, but I'm in the phase of kind of learning it myself. You know, I'm in my, you know, like same with bartending or whatever. Like I was a bartending trainer or whatever, but you have to get good enough at your craft and know enough to where you can kind of teach others and help them not make the same mistakes you did. My ultimate goal is how can I simplify this and make the shortcut like a mentor or whatever they say a mentor just folds time. You know,
I never heard that. That's cool.
Oh yeah. Like, so, investing in yourself or investing in a mentor, you know, people look at the cost or the cost of the mentor that's so expensive. But when you look at it as what's the cost, what's the value in folding time?
Right. They put out all this work. Well, and then they're giving you the good stuff at the end.
100%. And it's like you're avoiding the pitfalls that they had.
Right.
You know, like all my years of bartending and learning from other people and picking up this and picking up that. It's like, I could teach you a quicker way of doing this or a smoother way of doing this, or this is how you can help multiple people at one time and still manage to get your work done, or still just because you've done it so much. Or when I did construction, you know, there's always these like tips and tricks of like how to measure this a certain way. You got some weird angle and like, okay, well, you can make a temp with this, or, you know, you measure it this way, that way, and then that'll get you. But somebody had to go through the struggles and trials of doing that.
Right.
And especially when I work construction, like trying to figure something out that took hours and hours and hours. And then somebody be like, oh, you just do this. And you're like, dang it. Like I spent 3 days on that and you came in one day, or it took me 3 days to figure that out. Where were you like 20 minutes ago?
Right. But then you lock that in the bank. You're like,
then I lock it in the bank.
A good piece of information. I'll know for next time.
100%. And then as that, part of that too is having the confidence within me that I'm at a instead of being so hard on myself, and realizing that even at that point, you know, they say when you teach somebody, Jim Quick talks about it. He's like, whenever you learn something, when you teach it, you get to learn it twice.
Yeah.
And so
you learn it better almost.
You learn it better. Like the more you do it, you actually learn it better.
Yeah.
When you're doing it. It's like whenever you're a trainer in something, like we're all in the restaurant industry, so I'll just use that as an example. I knew the most about the products we were selling and the food and the little nuances when I was training it to others, because you're constantly going over it and refreshing it. And they're constantly asking you questions that you have to find the answers to.
Right. Totally.
And so how do you balance the two? Part of me realizes that in order to actually get to that point, I'm going to have to start trying to do it on a smaller capacity.
Doing what?
Like teaching and you know, maybe certain things before I really am as proficient as I would like to be in order to help me get proficient.
Right. Yeah.
In a obviously controlled, safe way.
That's so well put. I never connected those dots as far as like, because I totally run into that too, because I'm training essentially every server, every runner, every bartender that comes into the restaurant now. And I'm constantly learning new stuff because either I didn't, like, they'll ask me, you know, like, oh, does this particular sauce have gluten in it? Or does this, you know, whatever, does this have any animal products? I'm like, you know what? I never asked that specific question about this specific thing. Let me go find out. And then that just increases my knowledge. So that's totally applicable to really anything in life, but especially if you're teaching. Yeah. It's like you want to, and, you know, I think we're similar in the sense of like, I want to be able to teach and, you know, share information that I've learned, whether it's, you know, esoteric or spiritual or whatever. But you do feel sometimes like you're like, oh, I'm not there. I'm not the holy man I want to be, or I'm not the enlightened individual I want to be. But you learn as you go, too. You're going to get better as you go.
I follow this one guy. He's like a mentor in the stock market. And he was talking about, he was trying to get this thing. I forget what it was off the top of my head, but it was like, it was trying to do like the Zoom things and the meetings and the teaching. And like, he's like, I studied for 6 months exactly how to do this. And then like the first day I had my first class, the sound wasn't working and this wasn't working. And I had to figure it out on the spot. And he was like, had I started doing it earlier, I wouldn't have had those hurdles. Like I was trying to overachieve. And so he's like, at some point you have to jump in the water.
Right.
And you're going to, there's no such thing as failing. There's learning,
right?
You know, and you never say the kid's failing when they're learning how to walk. It doesn't, it's like, oh, they're just going to, you already know they're going to walk. They're just going to keep doing it. You just say my kid's failing at walking. You never say that.
That's like such a good way of putting it.
Walking. So he's like, I love that. At some point you're going to have to fall on your face. And the sooner you fall, he's like, if I would have fell on my face sooner, I would have been so much further ahead at that 6 month point had I jumped in the water than where I was at that 6 months point. Like the growth in that. So, you know, there's that weird balance of, like you're saying, how much do I know that I can even put that out there? And then how much am I overthinking that I need to know before I put that out there? And, you know, for me right now, it's like, I know I'm not there yet, and in a lot of ways. So it's like, once my goal first is to not have to bartend anymore. Once I can get to a point where I'm successful enough that I have the free time, then I could sit and have that space to like, all right, how did I get here? And it's actually working. Right. So now that adds validity to what I'm putting out there. And and I can say it based on this of living it and showing it.
Right.
And then it also gives me the time to focus on how I'm going to do it and figure out an avenue of how I'm going to do it, or figure out what part of it I'm going to focus on. So right now I'm kind of in the learning stage.
Yeah, that's cool. Do you see yourself specifically going into like the financial market, or like?
Yeah, I mean, I'm doing it now. So like I study futures of crypto, options, like I'm into like everything. And then,
so is Dogecoin going to go up?
It's going down currently. I know. Eventually it probably will.
I got like $3,000 in there. I was like, damn, I thought I was going to go back up.
I dumped some, when it was like 18 cents. Like I looked at it today. It's like 13.
I know. It's going to spike. We'll see.
Yeah. Hopefully. And so like my other issue is I struggle with patience. So like this isn't working. I'm on to the next, but I'm still working at it, but it's not happening as fast. So I'm going to try this and I'm going to try that. And I'm not really fully giving everything
Planting different
seeds. And I think the benefit of that is I'll be more well-rounded, and it also gives me the idea to see what's working when, and because different things are going to work in at different times. Yeah. Like the market's going to change. If oil is doing well, this is doing bad, and it's this and that. And now we're in a different climate where the retail traders, which is everybody else, have so much easy access that you didn't have before. Like when I was growing up, it's like if you wanted a stock, you went to a bank or a banker or a stockbroker, and you had a piece of paper and it cost you $50 a transaction. Now we can do them free, and everybody does them from their phones. And so the GameStop things and people that I've paid for their services that were actual stockbrokers on the floor and actually have been doing this for 20 years are having bad times. Like it's not as like, I feel like the water's more unknown almost than it's ever been. I mean, granted, the main people control it like they always have, but it was easier to kind of follow what they're doing because now there's all these other variables.
Right. More complicated.
And the world itself, we're more of a one world country. So now you have these different factors from all these other countries. And with social media and everything being so quick, a stock can drop or move or this and that based on something that you wouldn't even think would influence it. And it is. So in that climate, it's a little bit different. And so I'm trying to learn it all right now. And that's what I do with everything. And it's like, I get bits in here. That's what I'm talking about, like the Christianity. And I'm still, studying the spirituality and the mindfulness and the science behind stuff. It's like, I kind of almost need all that. And I kind of look at it as if I'm too much focused on something, it can lead to boredom. And it's not. Back to the whole thing. How do you find the drive or the why to continue? And it's like, I almost need to step away or go back, or kind of like an artist, you're drawing, they say at some point, just step away.
Right.
And then, cause if you don't step away, you're just going to ruin it. Cause you're going to over paint or overdraw.
Right.
And then maybe that's when your creative juices flow and you come back, but it takes you this way to get back to this way. Full circle in the whole ups and downs and the valleys. I'm kind of doing that right now. So I'm kind of like involved in everything. However, for the first time for me, it's something like I'm really interested in it. And I'm really like, I get hyper focused on things, but this has been the thing that's the longest I've been hyper focused. Like photography, I got hyper focused on that, and videography, hyper focused on that, and acting and different things. However, this has kind of always been kind of a through line for me and I find it very interesting.
The market specifically.
The markets and just how it moves and like figuring out different patterns. Like everything's a puzzle, like a chess game all the time.
Right.
And I'm just so frustrated I haven't figured it out yet. And you've never figured it out, but not to a point where I'm like, dang it. I knew it.
I got it.
So yeah, I mean, I guess ultimately the goal is at some point I've always felt like I need to be of service in some way. And that's where my purpose is. And I'm kind of on the path of trying to figure that out.
Oh, that's cool. So was it the interesting factor of the stock market that drove you there, or?
I mean, I've always been like, as far as money and stuff and like different things and the way it works, like even as a kid, I remember like baseball cards and collecting, and it wasn't about the players or the sport. It was about what card was going to give me the most value and what was going to be the rarest, even to the point where I ripped off. So like in the 80s, the kids down the street, there was a series of like 70s baseball cards, and their dad's friend had given his kids this series of baseball cards. And when there were mini versions of the card, and when I did the research, and back then it was like a Beckett guide, you looked at the Beckett guide, it would tell you the value and the prices.
Bro, that brings me back to so many memories.
Boom,
I used to collect like NBA cards and stuff.
So they were the mini ones, and what I found out, there was a formula. If it was the mini version of the player, it was worth 2.5 times of what the regular card was because of the rarity.
No way.
And so these kids didn't know the value of it. So I would trade them cards of players they liked because I was after the value. And the player on the card meant nothing to me. I didn't even know who he was. It was about a value. Since I'm ripping these kids off, but I'm a kid. I mean, you know, I'm a couple of years older. It's a value and what you value.
Exactly. So the kids valued their player. Yeah, exactly.
And they did. But, so you know, it's like a monetary value is what I was saying.
Right.
And then I remember their dad coming to my dad and knocking on the door and telling what happened. And I had to give the cards back.
No way.
And so my dad laid into me and put this big guilt trip on me. And back to blockages and different things. And like, you know, realizing that like, you know, that people talk about your parents like money doesn't grow on trees and people that have money are evil because, you know, or they're mean or they're bad or they're, you know, nobody that's honest person can be rich. We create these beliefs. And I know for me, and I've been working through it as I truly believe that had a big influence of me not becoming successful because I was always giving or I felt so bad after that. I mean, you know, you're a kid, you're doing something you don't realize, like another kid makes fun of another kid and embarrasses them, but they don't realize what they're doing. Kids just say shit or they do stuff. And then when they bring it to your attention, now you just feel so bad about it. And then it went to the other extreme where it was like, I think it took me the other way. And then, you know, like when I was a kid, like my brother would go roller skating and do this stuff and I would just save the money and save. So I've always been kind of like, I don't know if you guys are probably too young for like silver spoons, like Alex P. Keaton and or was it Silver Spoons or
is that a book or is that like
no
a lifestyle?
It was a TV show.
Oh no, I never heard of it.
I think it was it Silver Spoons? No, it was Family Ties or one of them.
Yeah.
Anyways, Alex P. Keaton, who was Michael J. Fox's character, he was like this young, like Wall Street businessman, whatever. He was all about money. And it's like, that's how I was as a kid. And I feel like I would have been on that path of being like in Wall Street and doing that stuff had certain different things not happen. So kind of fast forwarding to later on in life, I met like a stockbroker at the bar and he kind of got me involved in it. But right away, I just took to it. Even if I wasn't making money and just fascinated about it and just like learning about it. And then, you know, but, you know, and then the biggest part is you have to take risks in life. And so if you're hung up on, whether or not you can eat or, you know, you grew up with not a lot of money or certain things happen. It's like, how do you take that risk? And then you got to work through that. And everybody that's successful will tell you that you have to take the risk or you're not going to, if you don't, the bigger the risk is, the bigger the reward. And, you know, you just have to be okay with it. And then going back to yourself is just realizing like my mom did all this. Like what risks did your mom take? 3 kids to another country, not knowing the language. Like it doesn't get any bigger risk than that.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? But something in her brain in survival mode didn't allow her to get stuck and hung up on the fact that what if we can't eat? What if I can't find a job? What if I can't communicate? Where are we going to live? Where are we going to sleep? It's like she wasn't able to get caught up in her head. And all I do is get caught up in mine.
You're right. Me too. Me too. Shit. Dude,
but I mean, I feel like it's all for a reason. It seems like, you know, you've come full circle in a way. It's like, you know, you come back to this individual or a group of individuals or just a moment in time where you're re-inspired to get back involved in the stock market. It's like, maybe that was something that was intrinsic in you, you know?
It happened.
So cool.
What about you?
You got the spark. I mean, I got some money in Dogecoin. That's about it.
No, like, what is your goals, or what do you want to do, or where do you see your future?
My big thing is I'm just trying to get this book out. I feel like I'm like kind of trying to reinvigorate myself. So I go through interesting cycles where I like similar, I think, to your energy, where I get very focused. I get like hyper focused on things, and like Mario, he's lived with me long enough to know that like, you know, I'll go through 3 to 4 month spans where I'm like, all right, I'm getting in the best shape of my life. And then I don't drink or smoke weed and I'll just work out for 4 months straight doing 2 days or whatever. And then I'll go through like, all right, well, I'm going to like buy all this photo equipment and like help my uncle with his yoga studio. And like, he's going to, you know, he wanted to like do this whole yoga photography series and like have a couple books, but then he ended up retiring like a couple months later. So just interesting, you know, it's like I, you know, see myself divulging, I guess, in certain ways. But as I've grown older and as I've come to this, my own appreciation of like how the universe works and certain principles that I think are valuable, I want to share those. So my big kind of like balancing act now is figuring out how it's going to navigate with my relationship. So I know for certain that I want to get this book out, and I'd love for my career to be writing books and to be sharing information. So that's my passion, is to be able to like just talk like this, listen to other people, share ideas, converse, talk about the universe, talk about life, talk about, what motivates us, what we like to do and why we like to do it. It's like this always intrigues me. So I'm going to continue to do that. And hopefully, I can get to a point as I continue in my relationship and continue in my like day job and get to a point where I can do that full time. So my main focus for like maybe the next 8 months is just finish the book. I'm like 387 pages in, and just got to finish the book and get a publisher, get a literary agent, edit it down, cut all the fat, and then publish that sucker, and then write another one. Keep going,
Nice.
So that's the goal. Start building up passive revenue. Grind.
One thing about Grant is that I can admire it because he doesn't stop. That's the good thing about him. It's like some of the things he chooses to do, I'm like, that's such a waste of time. You were just doing a completely different thing 2 months ago, 3 months ago, and now you're jumping on this thing. Why don't you just stick with the last one? Why don't you stick with the last one you were doing? Just stick through, build your discipline. You'll be successful on that. Just choose one.
We need stimulation.
And you do. No, I totally agree. But what I'm seeing now, and I've always seen it, but I'm realizing more about it, is that you don't stop. And that's the best thing. And I don't want you to stop. And I want you to keep pushing any button in every direction you need to go. Just don't stop, because I feel like that's where you stay stagnant and you stop growing and you don't improve.
If you don't stop, you get it.
There you go. That's right. And Adam, for you too, man, I hope the best for you. If I can be of any assistance towards your success or your future in any way, let me know. I mean, I got the podcast, or we could set up anything for you. I'm here for you, man, and I'm so happy you came on the show. I'm sure we'll see each other at work again, and we'll talk some more. And I mean, we're in a way, by being on the show, we're building more connections. We're expanding our web of connections, and everybody has something to offer. And I feel like by sharing our experiences and sharing our opinions and our ideas, we expand that same knowledge of ourselves and our perspective in the world and our part in the world. So I appreciate you for that, and I'm sure we'll do this again.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me. This is a great experience.
I'm a guest too, Mario. You didn't thank me for coming. What the hell,
I've had you on a million times.
And likewise for both of you. If there's anything I could do or anything, I have equipment too, or whatever's needed. I'm there.
For sure, man.
This is great. This is like first time I've ever done this. So it's cool.
And I'm sure we'll do it again.
Yeah.
As you venture off in different things, we'll have you back on. We'll hear about it again. Grant's been on. He was honestly my first guest. I had him on like 3 times. The first 3 episodes of the podcast, he was on. On the third one, we were just. I started it during the pandemic.
Okay.
So I couldn't have anyone else. In a way.
How many have you done now? Like 30?
This is 21.
21.
This is the 21st podcast. So.
Now, do you try and edit them down to a certain time?
No. So I cut them all up on the full length with everything. I release that, and then I release parts.
Okay.
Like subjects. They're usually 5 or 6 minutes long, sometimes more depending on how long that subject kind of prolongs. But yeah, and then I release shorter ones that are like 60-second long, just clips of everything that we kind of talked about. And that kind of brings in more views and stuff, because nowadays it's all about like 10 seconds and move on, 10 seconds, move on, or 60 seconds. And
the attention span is gone.
Yes. And
not a lot of people could do this. Just have a conversation. Like, not, you stick other people in these seats and not everyone can just sit.
Now, for me, it's easier for me to be here talking, but if I was watching this, I'd watch it at 1.5 to 2 times speed. I want to get through quickly. I want to hear all the information I can in like the shortest amount of time.
Right. Exactly. Like,
it's different if you're not involved.
Yeah. I mean, I try to do that with audiobooks, and it just did not resonate with me. I had to put it back.
A friend of mine, there is a trick that I think helps. She buys the book and the audiobook and plays the audiobook while reading it.
Really? What?
And so you have another voice other than in your head. And then I've done it sometimes, and it actually kind of works. You put the book on 2-3 times speed, and you're reading faster.
Oh, that's kind of cool.
Only time I
so what you're saying is that we should really talk faster, that getting more information.
Yeah, right. Only time I listen to audiobooks for too long, long, is drives.
So I walk a lot. I walk everywhere. So the only time I really use my car is I change the parking.
Right.
So like Trader Joe's from my house is like 2.5 miles. So that's like a 5-mile walk.
Oh, okay.
So I'm walking to get my groceries, or I'll walk to Whole Foods, which is a mile away, and I'll walk to Costco. And sometimes I'll do all 3 in a day. It's kind of like my shrink. It's like on my day off, I'll go out, or if I'm cooped up in the house, I'll go out on a long walk, get some groceries or something I need to do. And then that's like 2.5, 3 hours of an audiobook.
That is great. Yeah, walking is great for listening and understanding things and absorbing a lot of things.
Well, they said, I've heard Steve Jobs did a lot of his meetings while walking.
Right. Yeah, that's true.
It's like, hey, let's go for a walk.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's great.
We should do a walking podcast.
We should.
Right?
We should.
Just put little clips on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have some
just 3 dudes walking around with their phones all outstretched, talking to each other.
Right. But all right, man.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Stay tuned for the podcast, and we'll see you next time.
You.
There you go.
You ever see Hot Ones? You ever watch Hot Ones? Mario, you got me on Hot Ones. It's like video where this guy like sits across from people and they just eat hot wings, and he interviews them. It's all like celebrities and stuff.
They got big because of